across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up to 3 minutes past 1, Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Ian Collins. Great to have your company this afternoon. Well, an attack on Jewish people in Golders Green is an attack on all of us. Anti-Semitism is anti-Westernism, and that is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. I won't be pulling my punches. Will Jews ever be safe in this country, and are the political class responsible for the rise of anti-Semitism, which is, of course, a big problem that we're discussing across the duration of today's show? Meanwhile, Nigel Farage reveals an attempt was made on his life with a firebomb put through his letterbox. Should the leader of all opposition parties have the same protection as the PM? Nearly two-thirds of young people will have a mental health condition by 2030. Meanwhile, Tony Blair says we should stop paying benefits to people with stress and ADHD. So has mental health become an industry? I'll be speaking to a leading expert who argues we spend too much time and money medicalising the normal problems of life. And today's question to you is a simple one. With a new poll predicting a catastrophic outcome for Labour in next week's May elections, if Starmer goes, will his replacement be worse? Now, my phone number this afternoon is 03444991000. You can text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. What are we going to do about this incumbent governing party? Will Starmer's replacement be worse? Who would you like to see leading the country? Is there anyone in the Labour Party that you think can do a better job? Is it Big Ange? Is it Ed Miliband? Is it Shabana Mahmood? If Starmer goes, which is likely, will his replacement be worse? 0344 499 1000. Now, you can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. You can also see the show. And I'm delighted to say that Jana is directing our TV output this afternoon. Head to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop. You'll see my amazing guests and you'll be able to watch Dolan's Dispatch, which is how we're going to kick off today's show. The horrific Golders Green attacks are not about Jewish people, because the deranged murderous thugs who hate Jews hate all of us. Islamism, a dangerous Hitler-esque ideology that we've imported over several generations via unchecked mass migration, is not just a war on Jews and Israel, but on Western civilization. They hate the Jews and they hate us too. This is a war on our free lives, on a society in which women are equal. It's a war on going shopping, socialising, having a pint down the pub, a flutter on the horses. It's a war on free markets, free speech, on religious tolerance, on liberty, and on the British way of life. A war on Jews is a war on all of us, which is why those pro-Hamas marches that we saw every weekend after October the 7th included attacks on our cenotaph, which is there to commemorate our war dead who gave their lives for Western values and traditions. It's why those so-called peace marches saw the vandalism of the statue of Winston Churchill, the man who saved the world from fascism, violence, hateful ideology, and bloodthirsty tyranny. The scourge of anti-Semitism, which neatly doubles up as anti-Westernism, has not been helped by our own Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who campaigned for Jeremy Corbyn, who stood accused of fostering Jew hate in that party, so much so that Jewish Labour MPs were resigning en masse. That is a man that Starmer campaigned to be our next Prime Minister. Now, I couldn't care less if the PM's wife is Jewish, because his actions in office have worked expressly against the interests of the Jewish people. With his catastrophic decision to recognise the state of Palestine during the war in Gaza, whilst Israel was fighting for its very existence and responding to October the 7th. Recognising the state of Palestine, whilst it remained under the political leadership of Hamas, whose stated aim in their constitution is the disappearance of Israel and the death of all Jews, the idea that Starmer could reward Hamas in that way tells you everything you need to know. Hamas were responsible for the worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust with October the 7th, and Starmer rewards them with the recognition of statehood. This is the same Prime Minister who's dragging his heels on prescribing the Iranian National Guard, the IRGC, who are effectively the equivalent of the SS under the Nazis. And he offered the United States and Israel no support whatsoever in their brave and noble efforts to disarm Iran, the worst regime since the Third Reich, who must never have nuclear weapons. Starmer hasn't prescribed the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's pandered to the British Muslim vote as a result of pressure from pro-Gaza independent MPs. With his position in the Middle East, now bad news for anyone that supports the safety of Jews, the integrity and existence of the State of Israel, and Western interests. You've also got the woke, be kind progressives, normally middle-aged, university-educated, middle-class, latte lefties, who have gone on those horrendous weekly peace marches, who think that they're the good people. They're the same people peddling Jew hate on campus, dressing up their toxic anti-Jewish pronouncements as skepticism about Israel. Sorry, no one's buying it. Jewish people always have been and always will be the canary in the coal mine. This is a community, a culture, a religion and a faith which, whilst maintaining its strong identity and traditions, always integrates very successfully into the host nation. There are no Jewish terror attacks in the UK, no Jewish hate marches, no random stabbings in the streets of someone wearing the religious apparel of the opposing faith. So if Jewish people are not safe in your country, then you're not a proper country at all. You have lost control. You no longer have true law and order. Welcome to modern Britain. The safety of Jewish people is our safety too. Radical Islamists, including this alleged Somalian terrorist who came to the UK as a child, more cultural enrichment, will go after Jews, that is clear. But what the latte lefties, who despise Israel and therefore Jews, don't seem to understand is that they'll be next. The war on Jews is a proxy for a war on Western civilization. That's why these scumbags attack our war memorials. You have been warned. 0344 499 1000. Your reaction. Are the political establishment responsible for the rise of anti-Semitism? Live in the studio, political strategist Peter Barnes. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Mark. How's it going?
I'm very well. Good to see you. But
can I just say an excellent dispatch. Excellent.
It's very kind of you.
Very, very good. Hit all the nails on all the heads, I have to admit. Very, very good. And it's a shame that we have to say it. That's what annoys me most, is I have to sit in this chair yet again and we have to talk about anti-Semitism, a talk on the Jewish community, an attack on the streets of London, and yet again, nothing changes because of the ominous words we all know he was known to prevent. How many times have we had to have this conversation? The suspect was known to prevent. Now, we don't know how far it went down the line with them, but yet again, people are dead because the state failed. And we aren't safe. We aren't safe with this lot in charge. It's fundamental now. There is no law and order. And more importantly, the insidious phrase, and we heard it quite a lot over the last couple of years, is "and all other forms of hate." We never really took the seriousness of the anti-Semitism.
Turning a blind eye to Jew hate on the streets.
Oh, it lies at their feet. 100%. It all is, because it is policy failure, and more importantly, it is refusal to accept that policy went wrong and to correct it. That is the big thing. It's they know that we got so far down the line, it all went wrong, and they didn't change course. They ploughed ahead, and they decided that everybody who was bringing up the problem, they were the problem, not the stabbings, not the anti-Semitism, not the hate. You and me, Mark, were the problem for talking about it. So they tried to clamp down on our freedom of speech rather than actually acknowledge their failure and tackle the problem. This is exactly the Starmer government, and it's the progressive left through and through.
And it's surprising that people were not alerted to this problem hours after October the 7th, the single worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust. Now, you would expect in a normal climate, a normal political climate, that there would be shock and horror and despair at what happened at a very peaceful music festival in Israel on October the 7th. Instead, there were people in our major cities hooting their horns and celebrating what had happened, and yet silence from the political establishment.
Oh, yeah. They don't say anything because, like you said, the blood is on their hands as well. And it staggers me that we still have to keep talking about October 7th as one of the single worst attacks on Jewish people since the Holocaust because we just kind of brush it off. We kind of think it was something else. But yet, we obsess over so many other different things. But that one is, again, it is treated differently because it is an attack on Jews, and that is a societal problem. And I think it is up to everybody in the nation to actually start to take this seriously and to start to say to people who want to shut down these debates, you've got to stop. And I think that is the problem. We don't, as a society, take responsibility when these things happen. We like to blame other people. That's easy to do. But we have to start saying, when, you know, we see things like speeches shut down on university campuses, that is wrong. When we see these hate marches, that is wrong. It is up to everybody in the country to say no to this, not just expect other people to stand up and say no. That's always been my thing. You know, an armchair activist is one thing. Be an activist yourself and say no. Get involved. This is the only way we'll ever change or save this country, is stop sitting at home saying this is terrible when you've got the power to do something about it. And I think that's the one thing that we've got to start taking, because we can't trust the authorities. We can't expect the people in charge to actually govern because they got us into this mess. We have to get ourselves out of it.
Most definitely. Now, the author of Israelophobia, Jake Wallace-Simons, was in the studio with Julia just a few minutes ago, and on the show they were discussing banning the so-called peace marches, which many have framed as hate marches, which I think is merited given the fact that they carry around signs including "Globalise the Intifada," which means bombs in shopping centres, at football stadia and at pop concerts. That's what "Globalise the Intifada" actually means. From the river to the sea, quite geographically and literally means the disappearance of Israel. I could go on. So these peace marches / hate marches might be banned. I would support that, but it's a sticking plaster, isn't it? Because the people that think these things aren't going to go away.
Yes, that's the big point. You have to wonder, why do people want to walk down the street with those signs? That is the illness. That is the disease of anti-Semitism.
And it's in our communities now.
It's in our communities. But more importantly, when you look at those hate marches, you suddenly had the head of the Metropolitan Police say that a Nazi flag needed context. In what world does a Nazi flag need context on that march? And you wonder why you've got anti-Semitic attacks in here in London. That is why. You have given permission for it to happen. You might not have explicitly said, go stab this person, but you've suddenly said it requires context. An attack, an anti-Semitic attack, which in my opinion, flying that flag definitely is. I'm sorry, you said required context. It should have been outlawed. It should have been policed, because you put it on the other foot. You look at any of these marches that have been anti-migrant or something like that. They are policed within an inch of their lives. This lot get free rein. That has to change, and that is an institutional failure, and it starts lying with people in charge, not the institution. The people in charge have to be held accountable. We hide behind institutional kind of like bias and all this kind of stuff because it kind of deflects away from accountability. People make decisions, not postcodes with nice letterheads. People. And we have to start holding those people accountable for it, and I lay a lot of it at Sir Mark Rowley, the head of the Metropolitan Police, because he's the one in charge. So he has to be held accountable.
Their handling of the weekly peace marches was catastrophic. They literally turned a blind eye. It was two-tier policing. Let's take a listen to the Prime Minister speaking this morning about the attack in Golders Green.
In the aftermath of an appalling attack last night in Golders Green, a terror attack in Golders Green, it is important that we come together very quickly now to take the necessary action. An attack on our Jewish community is an attack on all of us, and we have to approach it in that way.
OK, well, that's strong words from the Prime Minister, but here's how he was received on arrival in Golders Green earlier today. Is that cool reception directed towards the Prime Minister in Golders Green fair?
I think it's tame, considering what I think that community really feels towards Keir Starmer and what a lot of people in this country feel towards that guy. I think he has fundamentally failed to keep the people safe, and yet again, when one community is explicitly targeted because of who they are, that is a failure, and they have to be held accountable for it. It is not just Keir Starmer, it is Shabana Mahmood. She's the Home Secretary. It is her job to oversee a lot of the policing in this nation. She has failed. She's failed. This government has routinely failed to protect this community, and as you rightly say, it is not just it is not just an attack on being Jewish. It is the extension of that attack that has to be dealt with, because it is an attack on you and me and everybody watching at home. It means that you have to be more wary about where you are in this city or in this country, because it's not just a London thing. And that's a really important point we have to remember. I look back to the synagogue attack in Manchester.
Are Islamism and anti-Semitism in the same circle on the Venn diagram, or are they just connected?
Oh, it's one is the other. Islamism is anti-Semitism. It is born out of a hatred, and that's what we really have to remember. It is hate. These people hate, and they will do anything to attack anybody who isn't them. And that's what's really, really at stake here. This country is built on pluralism, and it's built on the kind of anybody can be here, but you have to get along with each other. There is no integration. Our failure to integrate communities has led to this problem. And we turn a stern eye to one, we look away with the other. That has to stop.
Is the rise of religious intolerance and violence a result of mass immigration? We'll discuss that next. It's 1:20. This is Talk.
Sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
Emily!
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Are the political establishment responsible for the rise of religious hatred, violence and intolerance? Is it the fault of mass immigration? Fiona says, good morning. Good morning. I'm so used to being on the radio in the morning. Good afternoon, Mark and Peter. What do Labour do? Grooming gangs, illegal migrants, attacks on Jews. They do nothing. They're in a position to represent the people and they only care about their own interests as shown on their voting in Parliament. Kevin says, good afternoon, Mark. It's easy to stop the marches and protests. Tell them they'll be rounded up and their bank accounts will be looked into. If found to be on benefits, they'll be stopped. If not British, you will be deported. I want to get on to Angela Rayner in just a moment, but can we link the rise of religious hatred and violence to mass immigration?
You can, but you have to be very careful about when you do it. You can link them together, but you have to talk about this. The next step is not just about people coming here, it's about what you do when people are here. So we don't do anything to integrate communities. Our lack of integration is the problem. So if you look at most terrorist attacks are actually held by people not first generation, but second generation. So it's the people who have come here, had children, and are not part of British society. I look at Axel Rudikabana as a prime example. You know, I look at Salman Abedi, he was another one.
And then the latte lefties are so happy to say, oh, it was a British-born person.
Exactly.
Like that's an excuse or a some kind of defence.
Yes, and it's also the fact they use things like Welsh choir boy. Yeah. You know, to deflect away from it. And if you suddenly bring up these issues, you're the villain because you're the racist or the xenophobe. They want to try and deflect away from their own culpability in the problem by just bringing people here and presuming that you suddenly leave all the horrors you've experienced at Calais. You know, that is a big problem. You're bringing and importing it into our culture that, you know, we don't have that kind of trauma as a society, but yet we're starting to have it now.
No, and anti-Semitism is a symptom of a wider sickness in our society, which you just touched on. And it's a sickness and an ideology that hates the British way of life. It hates the local pub. It hates a flutter on the horses. It hates women being equal. Religious tolerance, you know, the list goes on, and that's why they go after the war memorials, why they go after Churchill.
There's also just
pop concerts, things like that.
Yes, definitely. It's just one element. There's also the fact that anti-Semitism is looked at as kind of bypassed across by the middle classes, by the academia. If you look at the rise of anti-Semitism, usually comes from the top end of society down, not from the bottom up. So it is often those in kind of middle class professions that tend to say they make the odd comment that would be considered anti-Semitic, but they would never make the same kind of comment if it was Islamophobic. No. That is the big problem.
And of course they use Israel as their proxy for Jew hate.
That is a huge problem.
And that's why they're such disgusting people, in my opinion. So just briefly, can the anti-Semitic Islamist genie go back in the bottle?
No. Not at all. We broke the bottle a long time ago. And I think this is a problem that we're going to have to now have very severe and very harsh crackdown. Not just necessarily in person, but I think online. That's an inevitability now because it is rife online. But also we have to start, as a society, start saying that is not tolerable.
Asserting British values.
Yes.
This has all happened because of the ideology of multiculturalism, which is respectful to all other cultures. Well, actually, it should be a monoculture. It should be British values. By all means, be a Muslim, be a Catholic, be a Jew. And worship your God, no problem. At home, speak your language. Happy days. Wear your clothing, but you're British.
Yes, 100%. And that is why, very interestingly, you're starting to see a rise in support for Reform UK from first-generation immigrants because they don't recognise the country that they came to. That is a very telling mark that when the people who come to the country start to support people like Nigel Farage, you suddenly have to wonder, well, where did everything go wrong if the people like Farage are suddenly the problem? They aren't. That is a really interesting point.
Well, it's very ironic how there are millions of ethnic Brits who want the UK to be the way it was in the 90s. How ironic. Are they racist too?
Well, you know, it's really funny, isn't it?
Who actually don't want to be not see a white face in Birmingham.
Yes, it's staggering.
So they must be racist as well.
They must be. And it's funny watching the latte lot trying to lose their heads over it. They're like, what do you mean you're voting for this lot? How could you possibly? It is that. It is that mentality because those people are the most racist. They're the most xenophobic because they put people in boxes and they want to keep them in boxes.
Most definitely. Big Ange. Angela Rayner.
Yes.
Circling the wagons. Her allies say Starmer has got to go. Big Ange has made a calculation that she has an opportunity post-May. She may rue the day that she turns her nose up at that opportunity. This is a rare chance.
Yes, it's true, but she's on more manoeuvres than NATO at the moment, so it's quite funny. And also, the idea that Angela Rayner has allies is a very interesting phrase, considering the fact that a lot of people within the Labour Party don't want her. The kind of love for Big Ange isn't there like it used to be.
What type of Labour figures don't like her?
So it's a lot of the kind of, obviously the Blairites don't like her, the more established figures who run the Labour Party, because she's seen as the kind of the trade unions. It's kind of re-bringing in the kind of Corbynista vibe that the Labour Party worked relatively hard to get rid of. So the love for her isn't there. There's also the fact that she's got the tax problem still hanging over her head, I think is going to be a bit of a drawback. But we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out, because I don't know who's going to take over, because or if he's even going to go. I can't see him just resigning unless one person has 81 Labour MPs to force some kind of leadership challenge. I don't see it. I just don't see how he's going to go, because even now he can't read the writing on the wall.
Is Starmer the devil you know?
I think he might be, because I always say that he's incompetent, not ideologically driven. So in other words, if there's two circumstances, one's the great thing, one's the terrible thing, he's got to pick the terrible thing. You know what he's going to do. The problem with ideological people is that they become so locked in that they can't see the other option. So, it is, I do think he is somewhat of the devil you know.
Half of convenience stores linked to criminal gangs in UK hotspots. That also includes candy stores, vape shops and barbers. What a surprise. My viewers and listeners know that in every town and almost every village now, you've got one of these outlets. They're not making money. It's a cover for crime, isn't it?
Yes, and I can't believe that we still have to have this conversation yet again. Like you said, everybody knows it, everybody sees it, and yet the police do nothing about it. They do, a sweep every couple of months just to say, oh, we were tackling the problem. I know they do it here in London every now and then, but you literally walk around Leicester Square, Trafalgar Square, you see them all the time. And yet they're the ones that are the pristines at the front, no issues, no nothing, and you wonder why. They are fronts, the covers, and yet this is the city that we live in, because we aren't policed properly, we're managed, and that is the problem.
It's crime in plain sight, isn't it? I mean, some of these barber shops, there'll be 3 or 4 in a small town, and there's a Lamborghini in the driveway.
I'm in the wrong trade.
How many short back and sides have you got in it?
That's what
How many perms?
To be honest, the price of a haircut here in London is staggering, but I will say it's not that expensive to have a brand new Lamborghini. But again, we all see it, we all know it, and yet we're told to look away and look, this is a bigger problem, because, I do think that this has, yet again, it has the racial aspect, it has the Islam aspect, because it's there and the police won't touch it. They won't touch it.
Meanwhile, cyclists who kill pedestrians to be jailed for life. About time.
Oh, about time. I mean, I don't want to get on the kind of I hate cyclists kind of bandwagon, but I do think, as my father once said, that they are terrorists in spandex. But I do think that we have to start taking their actions seriously. They do jump the red lights. They do pose a threat, and when they don't behave properly, they are untaxed, and London, like everybody else who uses the road. And a bit of equality never hurt anybody.
The Lycra Taliban.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, the other issue is that the devices they're using now, these electric bikes, are very powerful.
Yes. Yeah, I do think there's been a couple of incidents where people have been knocked down by them, and I do think a woman died. So,
Regent's Park, I think.
Regent Park, yeah. I do think we have to start taking that seriously, because, one, you can't hear them because they're electric, and two, that they do go, significantly faster than a person can walk. So if you get hit by one, yes, it's going to do some damage.
Yeah. Will you be driving home in the Jag today?
No, it's the Lambo today.
Peter, we'll catch up soon. Brilliant to have you in the studio, Peter Barnes, political strategist. Who should replace Sir Keir Starmer? I'll be speaking to a well-placed MP next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. Jay says, good afternoon, Mark. The UK is now full of Turkish barbers. It's surprising that the Turkish population hasn't declined. Is that not a red flag? Also, you never see anyone in those barbers, but they're still able to pay all of their business bills. Jay, thank you for that. Who should replace Keir Starmer? Angela Rayner's allies say he's got to go. Is she the answer? Who better to ask than BBC radio legend Alex Dyke? Hello, Alex.
Hello. Hi, Mark.
Great to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
Do you think it's a question of when, not if, Starmer goes?
Yes, I do. And it just seems that every week things are getting worse for the PM. Just look at this week. Just look at the last couple of days. Everyone's saying, where is the Prime Minister? And it's got to be Angela, hasn't it? It's got to be.
Do you think? Do you think all roads lead to Ange?
Well, I do. I think the two hot favourites must be her or Wes Streeting. I don't think Andy Burnham's going to be able to pull it off in time.
Too many hoops to jump through.
Yeah, so I think that it's going to be Angela Rayner.
Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think her policies will be terrible, but she's a better politician than Starmer, isn't she?
Yes, and we've talked before about her having the common touch, particularly with the Labour voters. I think it's easy to look at her and imagine how she was brought up. Imagine going to school with someone like Angela Rayner. You haven't got
She's relatable.
Yeah, because if you look at Nigel Farage, who is brilliant, he's brilliant at broadcasting and connecting, but I think a lot of voters don't feel they are like him.
No, he doesn't have the backstory of Angela Rayner, who left school without qualifications and was a single parent mother before entering politics.
Yeah, so but I do quite like Wes. I think he's got a lot to offer as a politician, but of course the trouble, they've all got skeletons in the cupboards, haven't they? Skeletons that we can see, connections that we don't really approve
Wes Streeting, a protege of Peter Mandelson,
yes,
which is not ideal. Also, he's got a wafer-thin majority, which means he likely wouldn't return in the event of an election, which is a slight headache, isn't it? There's also a couple of other concerns about Wes Streeting. Too right-wing, probably, for the party membership to vote for.
Yeah, maybe, but I think, MPs sometimes can swerve and change, not exactly change lane, but slightly change direction to get the votes.
Well, stay with us, Alex Dyke, because joining us on the line now is a good friend of the show, independent MP, former Labour MP for Hull East, Carl Turner. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Mark. Nice to join you.
Really good to see you, and thanks for your valuable time. Do you think it's when, not if, Starmer goes now, Carl?
It's looking more likely, isn't it, that he's in trouble. And I think the vote this week to block that inquiry of the Privileges Committee is a real problem, because members of Parliament voted with the whip, but they did it begrudgingly, Mark. I've not seen faces looking quite as sad as some of my colleagues going into that lobby. The reason I voted, I don't think the Prime Minister deliberately lied, actually, but I think he was inconsistent with what he said at Prime Minister's questions, as opposed to what the evidence of the Select Committee heard from Ollie Robbins. So I think there was a prima facie case for him to have that inquiry. Why not? I think he'd have been exonerated. But he whipped MPs into the lobby to do what they're going to do. Our accusers, our opposition, Reform and the Tories and everybody else are going to be saying, you voted for that cover-up. And that leaves us exposed.
Most definitely. Notwithstanding the policy platform of this Labour government, Carl, why do you think Starmer struggles so much with politics itself?
Well, Keir Starmer's not terribly political. I think he has principles, and I think he has a plan. I think he's a committed public servant, but he unfortunately he's outsourced the management of the party to others. And that's been his problem for a long time, I think. He's not been involved as much as he ought to have been in the Parliamentary Labour Party. I think he's allowed other people to do that stuff, and people really don't know him. I was speaking with people this week, and his own PPS, one of them, which is a close colleague of him, prior to him being elected as the leader and prime minister. He, I'm sure, has a good relationship, but other PPSs, other private secretaries to him have not as good a relationship. And that's a problem Keir has, I'm afraid.
It most definitely is. Who do you think is the strongest candidate to replace him, Carl?
Well, look, this wishful thinking malarkey about Andy Burnham is just wishful thinking. You've got to be in it to win it. He's not. If I'm, I'd like to retire next week with a lot of money in the bank, but I'd need to win the lottery.
And go and have dinner with Paris Hilton, maybe.
I don't know what I'd do.
I think she'd like you, Carl. She likes men of principle.
If I had a few quid, I'd be happy to retire, knowing that I'm comfortable. But to win the lottery, you've got to put your quid on.
I know.
And Andy Burnham's not got his quid on, unfortunately. He's not in there. He's not in the mix. He can't get in because he's going to be blocked by Starmer and others. The NEC are not going to change the tune anytime soon. Angie Rayner is, I think, a very good candidate. I think she is a normal, sort of down-to-earth person who actually knows what's going on in constituencies like mine. But I don't know whether Angie is looking to be the leader. I've had conversations with Angie over the weeks and months. She's never said to me, will you support me for the leadership? I can't now, by the way, I'm suspended. But we've never had that conversation, Mark. So I don't know where we are, really. I think we're stuck with Keir Starmer for as long as Keir Starmer wants to be the leader of the Labour Party, but unfortunately is letting the side down by some of the antics we've been experiencing.
Knowing Angie, as you refer to her, can you tell us about her qualities? I mean, we mentioned, Alex Dyke and I, her backstory. She's come from humble origins. She lives in the real world. But tell us about Angela Rayner, the woman, Carl.
Well, look, Angie is a very down-to-earth. She's a no-nonsense character. She's a bit like my predecessor in some ways, John Prescott. She speaks as she finds. There's never a story about Angie Rayner briefing against somebody and saying a different thing to the face. She's very direct. I've had a discussion with her just this week about the Privileges Committee vote. She disagreed with my position. We had a very frank exchange. She tried to persuade me not to vote against the government because she thought it was the wrong thing to do, because her view was that Starmer hadn't done enough to warrant that type of inquiry. But she's a straight speaking. She's a no-nonsense character. She's not going to say that to me and then something else to another person. She's very direct, and I think that's appreciated in politics.
Of the possible candidates, Alex Dyke, you mentioned Wes Streeting, Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary. You've got Ed Miliband, Andy Burnham in Greater Manchester, which is a harder thing to achieve. Would you say that Angela Rayner is the most compelling personality on that list?
Yes, I would. I think the problem for Labour is there's no clear front runner at all, and some of these are seen as disruptive wild cards. Even Ed Miliband, but I just don't think Ed has got enough likability. I think it's down to Wes and Angela, but I think out of the two, even with the tax problems, which kind of makes you a bit more human in many people's eyes, it's going to be Angela.
Well, yeah, I mean, you come from broadcasting and, you've interviewed sort of big names in the world of showbiz, politics, all the rest of it. And that's what gets us into a different area, a different conversation, which is the X factor.
Yes.
And it's about which of those personalities, which of those people has the X factor. And that's something that was very much in force with Boris Johnson, wasn't it?
It was.
So 2019, he won that extraordinary landslide against all the odds because of his force of personality, his brand. Boris had the X factor now, went horribly wrong in office, but my goodness, that guy had cut through. Is Ange the same?
Well, the X factor is different for different people. Boris had, at the time, in 2019, bags and bags of likability. Nigel Farage cut through because he's so direct and concise.
Yeah.
And if you like what he says, it's very believable. What Ange has got is a different kind of X factor. She's one of the people. She's like the backbone of working class Britain, and that is so powerful for Labour.
Carl, what sort of policies do you think the next Prime Minister will need to have in order to reboot and save this government?
Well, I think some of the stuff that Andy Burnham has been speaking about is incredibly important, actually, because he's proven that if you are prepared to have an emphasis on regions, like Manchester region, you can actually build the economy. We're in a problem, Mark, right? Because there's no growth in the economy. We don't seem to
Correct.
be finding a way of growing the economy. We've got a welfare benefits bill that's just absolutely ballooned out of control.
Yeah.
We've got to address that stuff, right? Now, if you're going to address the welfare benefits bill, you've got to have an authority in the Parliamentary Labour Party, and you've got to carry people with you. The problem Keir's got is he can't carry the party with him. And let me give you an example of what I mean. I'm sure that Keir Starmer, I know him well, he's a Parliament, or he was at least. I'm sure he'd be keen to do a reshuffle. But there's no way that he's going to do a reshuffle after these local elections. Why? Because he's not got the authority. He rings X up and says, now then, thanks for your service in the cabinet, but I've decided to move you on. Or I've decided to put you on the back benches. That cabinet member says, well, I'm sorry, Prime Minister, I've lost confidence in you. It's good night, Viola, for the PM. There's no authority left. And that's the problem. The leader, if we're going to lose Keir Starmer as the leader, the next leader has to have the respect from the Parliamentary Labour Party to do the stuff that needs doing. The really tough things, the welfare benefits stuff, the immigration stuff. They've got to have that authority to be able to carry the Parliamentary Labour Party with them. It's going to be tough, it's going to be miserable, but actually it's the stuff that needs to be done.
Well, you talk a lot of sense, Carl, when you come on the show, and I think you're a great temporary loss to the Labour Party, having lost the whip, now serving as an independent. The things you've said are provably true, that this government must get on top of illegal immigration, because Labour voters, as well as most others, are not happy with the rates of illegal immigration. Most people would like to see sensible levels of legal immigration as well. Cuts to the welfare bill so we live within our means, and growth, which pays for public services. You know that, Carl. I know that. Alex Dyke knows that. Unfortunately, the Parliamentary Labour Party and the membership do not. They don't want to hear that message, do they?
Well, look, part of the problem, I think, Mark, is our offer to the country prior to the general election and during that election period, right? We're going to be careful, we're going to be cautious, we're going to not do anything radical. But then, in fact, when we get into power, we start with a very pessimistic style.
Yes.
We say, look, it's going to get worse before it gets better. There's no optimism, right? So people think, what's the point of voting for change when, in fact, we're being told there's not going to be any change? I think we needed to be clear about where we were going during the election period. And, Mark, it may well have cost us a few seats, but it had given that authority to govern in the way that you've promised to govern. Look, let's not be pretending here. We didn't get a resounding majority in 2024. There was no enthusiasm for a Labour government led by Keir Starmer. It was about kicking out the Tories. And what people were saying on the doorstep is, look, I'm giving you a chance. I can't stand you, really. I'm pinching my nose about this. I'm not enthusiastic about a Labour government, but we're going to give you the chance to govern, and don't F it up.
Well,
that's what they were saying.
You're right. And of course, it's exactly what seems to have come to pass. Stay with us, Carl. Alex Dyke, I agree with what Carl has had to say, that the welfare bill needs to shrink because it's unaffordable, that we need growth because that pays for public services, and we need to get on top of illegal and legal immigration. That's not a message that the Labour Party want to hear. They're going to vote for someone more left-wing than Starmer.
I know, and the danger here for the Labour Party, as I see it, is we know that the Tories messed up on immigration. We know the Tories made loads of mistakes and scored a lot of own goals.
Yeah.
Labour knew that. All they had to do was pick up the ball and run with it in the other direction and let us know where they stand on immigration and what they were going to do about it, and also the national health. But from day one, Mark, it went so wrong for Labour. What with the winter fuel allowance and taxing the British farmers,
so bad. Freebie Gate. I mean, a multi-millionaire prime minister that won't pay for his own suits and spectacles.
Yeah, but that story could have been told just about any politician in any party. They shot themselves in the foot with all the things I've just mentioned, and they just had to pick up the ball and run in the other direction. You're thinking, why can't you see it? We know that the voters of Britain are so worried about immigration. So work with us. Do what we voted you in to do.
Carl, can you tell us how painful it's been for you, professionally and emotionally, to be dumped out of your own party?
Listen, it's not painful for me. I don't get up in the morning at 6 o'clock and pedal a bike to a factory and earn next to now for a living. I'm paid 100,000 a year, Mark. I'm fairly well off, thanks. I mean, I'm a bit cheesed off, and I think that I ought not to have been suspended, but I'm not having it hard like people who get up in the morning and go to graft and have now at the end of the month for it. So I don't feel sorry for myself. You can put your little harps away. Do you know what I mean? It's not something that I think I've been victimised for. I think they made a mistake. I don't think I should have been suspended. My offence is voting against and campaigning against the ludicrous idea of doing away with jury trials. That's the offence. But look, I don't feel sorry for myself. People get up in the morning and go to graft, and they don't get much out of it at the end of the month. That's the people I concern myself with. That's the truth. I mean it sincerely.
Carl, briefly, if you can, if you had a magic wand, who would you choose as a replacement for Sir Keir Starmer? Is there one of the runners and riders we've talked about, or someone on the back benches that can save the project?
The problem we've got has been talked about, Mark. Wes Streeting has got this problem with his association with Mandelson. I think that's unfair because anybody who's been in the Labour Party for very long has got a relationship with him. I've had text messages from Mandelson in the last few weeks. You know, I don't go out there and pretend I've never met the guy. I know him. He did a lot for the Labour Party when was in opposition in '92. He did a lot to get Neil Kinnock's party, the front bench, in a position where we might have won. We didn't win. But then Blair won, and we had a successful time, to an extent, until Iraq, in my view, of leading the country. Now, I don't pretend I don't know Peter Mandelson, but those others, people who've got an association with him, are now having to divorce themselves from him publicly, and I think that's unfair. I think Streeting is a brilliant communicator, but I'm afraid to say I think that association that he feels he's had with Mandelson is going to put the kibosh on his leadership. Angie Rayner's my favourite choice, to be honest with you, but I hope we can manage to keep Starmer. I do, honest. I hope he can get a grip. And I hope we can get the party together in a position whereby we can build and actually succeed. But at the moment, it's chaotic. He promised that it wasn't going to be chaos. You spoke about it. We faced the electorate in July 2024. It was going to be competence. There was going to be no chaos. There was not going to be any shenanigans with jobs for your mates and all the string pulling and all that cronyism that we'd witnessed and experienced. That was going to be gone. Within a few weeks of being the Prime Minister, we had the, what was it? I think there was a name for it. Was it Freebie-gate?
Freebie-gate.
We had Freebie-gate going on. And then we move into the winter fuel stuff. What on earth was he doing with that? What a balmy idea. And it was the communication of that policy, Mark, because every single person thought that their granny, even though it wasn't true, was going to lose the winter fuel allowance. The communication was terrible. And then you start picking on the farmers. Nobody wants farmers to be picked on. That's where we get our grub from. It was a nonsense to do that. Look, I'm going to sound a bit sort of right-wing here, but why on earth did we go after private school, that stuff? I don't think it brings enough in, right? Is it going to bring enough in to pay for the state system and benefit the state education system? Probably not. So why did we bother doing it? We've now got private schools, which are special educational needs schools, going down the pan as a result of that policy. It was balming us that we didn't need to do. So we have to be Labour. We just have to be Labour. And there's nothing wrong with the Blairite Labour. We got us elected time and again.
I think we've got our next leader of the Labour Party. It is Carl Turner. What a shame that he's been suspended. Carl, we love having you on the show. We'll speak soon. Who should replace Keir Starmer? Will his replacement be worse? Don't go anywhere.
sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
Emma
With Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Who should replace Sir Keir Starmer? Here is a voice note from Adam.
Hi Mark, you asked the question right at the start of your show, who would I like to replace Keir Starmer at number 10? None of them. I don't think there's anyone that's good enough. But if you said to me, you've got to pick somebody at a pinch, I'd go West Streeting, and that's at a push. And I don't think any of them are good enough. We can't just hold on to Starmer because we don't think anyone's good enough. Let's get somebody else in, let it take its course. It will all come crashing down on Labour.
One of the big issues is about Alex Dyke, radio legend, that it's a battle for the soul of the Labour Party, whoever replaces Starmer, isn't it? It's not about finding someone that can present the policies better. It's about what policies they're going to have.
Yeah, sure. And I thought Carl, he actually reminded me of John Prescott when I was listening. Very straight talking northerner, and I agreed with just about everything he said. Apart from, I don't believe the people want Keir Starmer in power. I don't think.
No.
He's just not popular enough. The difference between Angela and Wes is a career politician. And as Carl said, he's not even sure whether Angela wants the gig. And that, I think, is something that's got to be sorted out. And with the local elections coming up, who knows what's going to happen?
Meanwhile, Nigel Farage refuses to rule out a coalition with the Conservatives in the event of a hung parliament. Your reaction?
Well, he wasn't saying that a few months ago, was he? So there's some change in the wind there. Maybe because he feels the Green Party are now a lot more popular. Look how more popular the Green Party are now.
Led by Captain Cleavage himself.
Absolutely.
Old Zach Polanski.
Yeah, they are so... someone there who's working on their PR has done a good job. Whatever you think about Zach and the polities and the madness, look at how far they've come in the last 6 to 8 months.
It's meteoric.
Yeah.
It's almost in parallel with Reform UK. I mean, they've got designs on being the main left-wing party in the country.
It's crazy, and you know, Nigel has got to hang on for another 3 and a bit years, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So and that's a long time in politics. We know a week in politics.
Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, right? The Labour government will hang on until the last moment.
Yeah, and we know that Keir is not going to fall on it. Well, we're pretty sure Keir is not going to fall on his sword.
No. Now, we desperately need interest rates to come down, don't we? Because the bottom line is that would reduce the cost of our mortgages. We would therefore have more money to spend on our lives. You've got inflation. It's a big, big problem, isn't it? What is your experience of the real world economy? You're out there as a broadcaster, you're doing events as well. You live in the real world. What are you seeing? What are you hearing about the economy at the moment?
It's tough. I know it's tough because I have a camping and glamping business and I can see the bookings, and I can tell you there's a lot more people this summer who are camping and not spending the extra on the more expensive glamping. I do gigs.
That's interesting.
I do gigs in theatres. I can see that the tickets aren't selling like they were. If Paul McCartney goes on tour, the tickets will sell. If Taylor Swift is doing a gig, the tickets will sell. Yeah. But if you come down below superstardom and you look at those shows, I know some big names who are not selling tickets like they did a year, 18 months ago, because what really helps the economy, Mark, is the nice-to-haves. Yeah. Going out for a steak, doing a dinner and a show, having a staycation, having a holiday.
Buying a frock on a Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely, but people aren't doing that at the moment, and that is affecting businesses who are being crippled by the business rates and the parking. Just getting parked to get somewhere is a nightmare. That's got to be sorted out. Then you can't even get to the store to buy the stuff.
Alex Dyke, BBC radio legend and now regular here on Talk. Alex, we'll catch up soon. Thank you so much for your time and input. What do you think about this, folks? Who should replace Keir Starmer? You've got your magic wand. Will his replacement be worse? Is Angela Rayner the answer to Britain's problems? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 2, a very good afternoon. Mark Dolan here on Talk. And we, of course, are responding to the horrific attacks in Golders Green. And what I want to ask you is a simple question this afternoon. Will Jews ever be safe in this country? And are the political class responsible for the rise of anti-Semitism, which is, of course, at the root of all of this? And given the fact that the alleged Golders Green attacker is of Somalian descent, who came to the UK as a child, has mass immigration created this problem? Let me know your thoughts. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage reveals an attempt was made on his life with a firebomb put through his letterbox. Should the leaders of all opposition parties have the same protection as the PM? And why do you think Farage is such a target? He said that he's asked the Home Office for support and help. He's got nothing. Meanwhile, nearly two-thirds of young people will have a mental health condition by 2030. Two-thirds! Meanwhile, Tony Blair says we should stop paying benefits to people with stress and ADHD. So has mental health become an industry? I'll be speaking to a leading expert who argues we spend too much time and money medicalising the normal problems of life. What do you think about that? Is mental health an industry now? Is it a scam? What's your experience? 0344 499 1000. Are we too keen to pop the pills? And the polls now predict a catastrophic outcome for Labour in next week's May local elections. If Starmer goes, will his replacement be worse? Is it a case of be careful what you wish for? Is Starmer the devil we know? Let me know what you think about this. Or do you think Angela Rayner or Wes Streeting could improve the fortunes of this country. 0344 499 1000. Damien is taking your calls. Book your place on the show. Is mental health a scam? Who should replace Keir Starmer? And is mass immigration responsible for the kind of terror attack that we've seen in the last 24 hours in Golders Green? Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, you can hear, of course, our show on DAB Plus in app and online. Lovely to have your company. You can watch the show. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And if you're watching the show right now on YouTube, you'll be able to see the very handsome security specialist, Will Geddes. Hello, Will.
A very good afternoon to you, Mr. D.
Really good to have you on the show. Will, the government have pledged £25 million to support the security and safety of British Jewish people. Will that money even touch the sides?
Probably not, Mark, actually, to be honest. £25 million really depends on whose hands that money goes into. And personally, I don't believe it should be any governmental agency. I would be looking at private security and supporting already the private security contractors that are working for and within the North London Jewish communities. But I think, again, it depends on how far that money is going to reach across the country, because it's not just North London where the Jewish community are at risk.
Are Islamism and anti-Semitism two sides of the same coin, in your view, Will?
Yeah, very much so. It sort of falls straight into certainly the general dialect of Islamic extremism, but also bearing in mind the particular group that has taken claim for this, and counterterrorism are being very cautious about confirming that it is indeed Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyah, or HAYA for short, or Hayi, I should say, Hayei, excuse me. This is an interesting group because, to be honest, they've only been in existence since the beginning of March, and they are already beginning to create a bit of a profile. And the profile is that they are paying low-level criminals and those that aren't necessarily fully radicalized to carry out many of these attacks. And out of the 10 attacks that they've carried out since their conception, the beginning of March, many of those, I would say, is probably 5 or 6, have been in North London. And it's believed that the Iranian state is behind it. So it could be, again, retribution for what Israel's doing against Iran with the United States.
Proof, if you needed it, that this Iranian regime needs to be dealt with, Will.
Yeah, very much so, Mark. I mean, look, I don't think anybody is a stranger to the fact that Iran has been the state sponsor of everyone from Hamas, who carried out the horrendous and horrific October the 7th attacks, as you know, in Israel, through to Al-Qaeda, through to Hezbollah in Lebanon. And I have many, many Lebanese friends, and they would certainly agree that Hezbollah is not a positive force within the Lebanon, but also Hezbollah in Iraq, who've also been responsible for some pretty atrocious acts down there. So all of them spiderweb back to Iran as the group that's provided financing, resourcing, and various other support.
The issue we've also got, some people are suggesting, Will, that we ban the weekly so-called peace marches because they contain hateful rhetoric such as from the river to the sea, which involves eliminating Israel from the map, and globalise the Intifada, which is effectively to encourage bombs at football stadia, at pop concerts and in shopping centres. The issue you've got, perhaps, is that if you ban the hate marches, fair enough. The problem, though, doesn't go away.
Well, the problem doesn't go away, Mark, but certainly the inconvenience certainly would. And when we look at the two-faced approach by this government, who are, in many regards, putting the influences on the councils that are permitting many of these marches, one's got to say, look, everybody's welcome and entitled to free speech. However, when you have individuals that are actually showing the Intifada, which is the ISIS flag, who are showing support to Hamas, again, to various hate groups which don't really want to welcome themselves within the United Kingdom in any positive integration, one's got to question the validity of affording that freedom of speech, because it is potential incitement to hate and incitement to violence. So there is one underlying issue, again, Mark, as you know, and that is the Muslim Brotherhood. And I've worked against the Muslim Brotherhood in various places in the Middle East. And I can tell you again, like Iran, they are the major sponsors of hate and major sponsors of terror within certain communities that they are opposed to.
Can I ask you a quick question before you go, Will, about Nigel Farage? Because he has revealed to the Telegraph that he was the victim of a firebombing attack at his home. He told the Telegraph that the lit incendiary device was pushed through his letterbox early last year, saying there are huge dangers in this job. Now, the police have investigated and no suspects have been identified so far. Tellingly, Farage has revealed to the Telegraph, Will, that he's tried and failed in the past to get security funded by the Home Office. Do you think we should do more to protect senior politicians like Farage, who the polls would suggest may be our next Prime Minister?
I think that they certainly should do. I mean, every MP is afforded to a nominal level of advice and security support, which is pretty basic, Mark, to put it mildly, and it may be down to panic alarms to the local police station. I mean, I won't go into detail. I know Nigel. I know that he has got personal security, and I know some idea, or certainly have some idea of what that coverage actually includes. And I know it's very expensive, and I know that he has been, I believe, picking up the vast majority of the costs on that himself, which is a massive load to bear. So I think the government has to look very fairly and squarely. I mean, if you look at Sadiq Khan, who's the mayor of London, who should be, I would like to think, apolitical. He has an armoured vehicle and he has a full-time security team. And that is provided for him by the government. So if he's provided with it, why the hell is Nigel not? Or Rupert Lowe, for that matter.
Most definitely, Kemi Badenoch, perhaps. Will, brilliant to have you on the show. Look forward to speaking soon. Have a very, very good Thursday. Will Geddes is an elite-level security specialist. Now, there's a stunning piece in today's Telegraph, and it's written by Nicole Lampert. And here's the headline regarding Golders Green. This isn't just a crisis for British Jews, it's a crisis for Britain. Eager to appease the extreme elements of the Muslim vote, our politicians have taken sides. Nicole Lampert joins us now. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Very good to have you on the programme. Congratulations on this important and compelling piece in the Telegraph. Why is this attack on Jews in Golders Green an attack on British values?
Well, just from what you were just speaking to with the previous speaker in terms of Nigel Farage, it's the same problem, isn't it? We have allowed too much terrorist support into this country. I remember years ago reading about the kind of hate preachers in mosques, Abu Hamza, I'm sure we all remember the guy with the hook, and the terrorism that he inspired, and that's in Finsbury Park down the road from where I live. And hate preachers continues. I was really surprised a few years ago when I heard from a Syrian refugee who lived in Amsterdam, and he said to me, I don't understand why these people are allowed to preach in your country. They've been people that have been thrown out of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and all of that. But and he showed me some videos of the kind of stuff they were saying. And just after October 7, for example, in one of the mosques, an imam said, he quoted from the hadith that said, use this line about go and kill Jews, go and take them from their houses. And the police investigated it, and the CPS said there was no case against this for racial hatred or incitement. So that's where we are, where the police won't investigate this. People are saying this kind of stuff in mosques, and then we end up with two people being stabbed in Golders Green. So it's all connected, and of course that will connect with Nigel Farage. The previous MP of Golders Green, Mike Freer, he had to leave his job. He was a chief whip. And he left because his office was firebombed and he didn't want to live with the threats anymore. So this has been going on in British society for too long. It's been the unspoken secret. And sadly, Jews are just the front line. We always feel that, the canary in the coal mine, all of that. And things are getting dangerous for us, and we're just the front line.
Most definitely. Nicole, you are a journalist. You're also a Jewish person. Can you tell me how you, your friends and your family are feeling at the moment?
Well, I've had a bit of a week because I went to Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester on Tuesday with Rob Rinder and the Israeli president's wife, Michal Herzog. So there we saw a community still deep in mourning. There was so much security that it kind of re-traumatized some of the people in the synagogue. The roads were closed by the police. And then I come home, and then Golders Green, which is where I kind of grew up, 2 men being stabbed. I got reports quite early in the morning that it was unconfirmed, and then it was confirmed, and it was kind of our worst nightmare, apart from, thankfully, these 2 men will hopefully survive and thrive. So it feels extremely frightening. And the many Jews that I speak to, no one knows whether we have a future in this country. I have been speaking to people in Israel who are already looking at this and the idea of a big exodus from Britain. And Britain's Jews, part of my family have been here for more than 400 years. Britain's Jews have added so much to this country, medical, culturally, philanthropically, businesses. The high street wouldn't look like the high street it does without Jews that made their way to this country, fleeing persecution elsewhere. And it feels like we are being driven out.
And if Jews are not safe in a country, then it's not a proper country at all, is it?
No, we can see from that is the lesson from history, that certainly, look at Nazi Germany, or even when the rest of my family came, which was just before the communist revolution. It signals that there are problems in the country, that there's an undercurrent happening, and Jews are simply the first scapegoat. So it's a signal of something else going on in society, and I think we can see that with the way that people are looking to the extremes, which again reminds me of Nazi Germany, when it was either kind of communists or fascists, and that's because the centre has not held. I consider myself a centrist, and they've been deeply disappointing. They can't even find the words to cope with this threat, to address it. They're too frightened to even talk about it, let alone get to the next place of working out what the hell they're going to do about it.
Most definitely. And do you think that Islamism and anti-Semitism are two sides of the same coin?
It's not just Islamism. Obviously anti-Semitism comes from all areas, and it's growing in the far right too, including in this country, and we're seeing it massively in America. So it's part of it, and of course what we're seeing on the left, and we saw it in Labour, and then we're seeing it in the Greens, is that it's being encouraged by the far left, who aren't Islamists, in many ways quite the opposite, but also hate Jews for different reasons. And, Jews are their scapegoat too, as they always were, and they were used by the Marxists for the same reason. So it's not as simple as Islamism, because the fact is that Islamism wouldn't have the foothold it does in our country if it wasn't being encouraged by the far left and ignored by the centre.
And the problem is it's been entered into the mainstream, hasn't it? Because there are lots of votes in it, which has therefore affected the Labour's position when it comes to anti-Semitism, as well as the Greens.
Yeah, and the depressing thing is, what happened to these much vaunted British values? What happened to our sense of right and wrong? Where have they gone? What happened to our sense of fairness and the British kind of tepid behaviour, where we don't like the extreme?
An open, tolerant society.
Yeah, we're too tolerant of the intolerant, and that's what the problem is. And other countries laugh at us. I've got friends from the UAE, and they're like, "What is going on in your country? It frightens me." These are Muslims. But you talked about the Muslim Brotherhood before. The Muslim Brotherhood is banned in the UAE, yeah. And as I'm sure you've discussed on your show before, they are now stopping their students coming to British universities because they will go home radicalised. And we are allowing. Why wasn't that the front page of every newspaper? Because that speaks to a deep sickness in our society that we are allowed to get away with it. And I know plenty of Muslims in this country too. They are very unhappy with the direction even the government is being led in terms of who it's talking to. They're not the right people. They're not people that are willing to fight this poison in their own culture, and one that is poisoning the wider culture.
Nicole, it's a very important and compelling piece in The Telegraph. More power to you, and I hope you'll join us again in the near future. My thoughts and prayers with the British Jewish community who have had another horrific week. It's truly really shocking to have to report on what happened in Golders Green. It's not the first occasion. It won't be the last. Nicole Lampert, journalist and broadcaster, do check out her article in today's Daily Telegraph. We're going to talk about politics as well, by the way. Keir Starmer, who should replace him? Will his replacement be worse? We're also going to talk about mental health. Has it become an industry now? Tony Blair has said we shouldn't be paying benefits to people with ADHD and stress. Do you agree? Are you on medication? Have we just forgotten that life is difficult? Let me know your thoughts on that. So much more to get through. This is Talk.
Sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is mass immigration responsible for the growing levels of religious hatred and intolerance in this country? Dan is in Portsmouth. Good afternoon, Dan.
Good afternoon. I would say the answer is that you answered asking the question incorrectly. No, it's not. If you had mass immigration from Italy or mass immigration from America or from Canada or Australia, no, it wouldn't be an issue, or even anywhere else in Europe.
Yeah.
It's mass Islamic immigration, and you guys, I understand you got an earpiece and you got to obey rules, and you're not allowed to go all the way, but you're catching up. You're saying Islamist, but eventually you'll catch up all the way. And you'll start saying what it is and calling this out for what it is, and it's Islamic, and the Islamic community need to be brought to book. They need to police it themselves. We got to stop going easy on them and saying, oh yeah, but every time you guys say anything close to true, you immediately caveat it with, oh yeah, but we all know most Muslims are lovely.
Moderate Muslims.
But unfortunately, moderate Muslims are irrelevant because they say nothing. They keep quiet. They keep stum. They've got to police their own house. Otherwise, this
and they never have, Dan.
Worse.
Historically, they never have. After 9/11,
they say, "Oh yeah, but did we say it every time the IRA let a bomb off?" It wasn't the same. The issue's different. This is religious. It's in their books. It's in their hadiths. Jew hatred is there. It's written. It's still relevant. And the moderates, as lovely as they may well be, they have got to be bought the book, and that won't happen until you guys start speaking plainly and clearly without caveating every time you say something remotely true, which is what, unfortunately, you do now, and I understand why you do it.
And you mentioned IRA terrorism. The vast majority of Irish people were dead set against the IRA and very unhappy with their activities.
Well, you're probably right. I don't know that for certain, but you're right. But listen, I work in Islamic countries. Let me just finish this with a story, right? I met an old Saudi guy. I work in Saudi. I met an old Saudi guy while I was over there recently, and I got chatting to him. Lovely old fella, works in the media, and he literally looked me in the eye and he said to me, "What on earth is going on in your country at the moment?" And he criticised our immigration policy, and he criticised the people we let in and the people we don't prescribe, and the way we let them carry on. They wouldn't get away with it in Saudi. They wouldn't.
I think, Dan, what you're saying is the elephant in the room is Islam, and that it's too much of a fig leaf to be referring to Islamism. That's almost a let off.
That's it. We caught up because a few years ago, no one would even want to say Islamism. Now, but it's too late. We've got to start saying it for what it is, and it's tough love. We've got to say to these people, listen, you have to police this. You have to be. I want to see people getting turned in mosques.
I agree. I agree with every word you say.
Yeah. So that's my two.
The problem I've got, Dan, it ain't going to happen, is it?
No, never. And I understand the problem you guys have got. I understand it. I can see it when it's happening, when you say it.
But the so-called moderate Muslims, I don't know whether they will ever step up.
No, they won't, because it's their dirty secret. It's their dirty little secret. You know, they're nice people, but if you put a gun to their head and ask them the question, they'll tell you they don't disagree with it. You know, it's in their book. It's in their hadiths. They might not want to hurt anyone, but they're not gonna contradict their prophet, and their prophet is the man who says it.
And of course, the other issue, a lot of the time, Dan, it's the clerics who are the extremists who are leading the so-called moderate Muslims. These people are in a position of power and authority, even if the congregation are not fully on board.
Do you know what I've never seen when I've been travelling through the Islamic world? I've never seen mass praying in the street. I've never heard anyone scream.
It's not the done thing.
They don't do it.
It's not what happens. Yeah.
It's no, and there's a reason they do it here. There's only one reason they do it here, and that is to display dominance. It's aggressive.
And Dan, just going back to what you've said, and I completely understand where you're coming from, and I really do agree, but what about the sheer number of Muslims that we have in this country? It's millions, isn't it?
It's over. It's over.
But
it's finished.
The question is, Dan, the vast majority are our neighbours and friends. We marry these folk. Your optician, your dentist, you name it. Your garage mechanic, security guards in this building. So how do you square that circle that you all know British Muslims who you're very fond of, and then the extremists? How do you square that circle?
You can't. You can't. Look at the history of Lebanon. Read Bridget Gabrielle's book about the fall of Lebanon. Her neighbours was Muslims. Her dentist was a Muslim. Lovely people. She thought they were all her friends, and then they all turned on them and tried to kill them. Read. It's history. If you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going.
And Dan, you think we're done for? I mean, because I've been asking, 100%. Can the genie go back in the lamp?
No. It's over. It's over.
And what does that mean? It's over. What does that look like?
This will be a Muslim country. You and I, our grandchildren, will live a very, very difficult life.
And that would be what, Britain becoming a Muslim majority country based upon the demographics?
Yeah, 100%. This will be the first Muslim nuclear superpower. This country will be a Muslim country in 50 years.
And what would life be like if that was the case?
Hellish.
There'd be less pubs.
Where Islam grows, freedom shrinks. That is an undeniable truth. It's just the truth. It's not racist. It's just true because that's the nature of the religion.
And Dan, before I let you go, what would you say to those that argue that your comments are Islamophobic and that it's a conspiracy theory that Britain will become majority Muslim if things don't change?
I would just say, look at the demographics, do the maths, and read a book about Lebanon or one of the many other countries that have had Islamic revolutions, and see how it's gone for them.
Dan, enjoyed your company this afternoon. Please call me again soon. It's important we have this conversation. You've been very articulate. Dave is in London. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I guess you'd like to pick up on what Dan has said. There will be people out there that will consider Dan's views to be Islamophobic, that there are millions of peace-loving British Muslims who abhor violence and abhor anti-Semitism.
Yeah, you could say that, but what Dan just said is right, and it's what's going to happen. So I think, when I just listened to him just before I came on, and, you know, I agree with just about everything he said. And we know that 90% of the, 95% or whatever it is of the Muslim population or Islam population are not violent, but they are the silent majority in that sense. But the problem is they're silent, and they're not going to say anything because the repercussions for them are probably just as bad, if not worse, for the Jewish community and the non-Jewish community should they step out of line anyway. So they're all held in line. But my point of calling was to say we don't have an anti-Semitism problem. We have an Islamist problem. I think if you spoke to 100 Jews in Golders Green and surveyed them and said, are you worried to walk down the high street today and be attacked by a white supremacist in a football scarf?
Yeah.
And they'll all say, not really, no. Are you worried about walking down the street and someone resembling an Islamist person or
of Middle Eastern background,
whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would you be wary? Then damn right they would. You'll have 100%. So we have an Islamist problem. I'm not going to say an Islam problem. We have an Islamist problem. We don't have an anti-Semitic problem. But what you've seen again is the Three Stooges from Cobra. I mean, you couldn't make this up. You're in a room with who? Starmer, Khan, and Rowley. This is your Cobra team.
Dumb and Dumber.
Well, I mean, it's laughable, isn't it? And then Starmer came out and said, Londoners are frightened. I'm a Londoner. I'm not at all frightened because I'm not Jewish. As Dan said, I will be frightened in 20 to 30 years' time. God forbid I ever live that long, because we will face the same fate as what the Jewish community are facing now. They're not stopping at the Jewish community. They're stopping. They won't stop until they get to all of the infidels and all the people that are not converted to Islam. That's as Dan said, what happens in every single country that used to have, let's say, Muslims and Christians living together. Over time, the Christians are just persecuted and they're moved out. So what Dan is saying is true. It may not be palatable. People may not like it. But the picture he has painted of 30 years' time is definitely coming. I mean, and there's another problem. The useful idiots, the white middle class and the young students who are, what are they doing now? We're going to all go and vote for the Green Party. What is the Green Party? It is a coalition of hardline Islam and, you know, picking up the rubbish in the park.
Which is why even Zach Polanski, Captain Cleavage himself, the leader of the Greens, has turned against his own community. He's Jewish, but he said, the risk to Jewish people in Britain is their perception. And he's also been commenting in the Sun newspaper today about how he thinks the dealing with that terrorist in Golders Green yesterday was heavy-handed. Yeah, well, what I would say to him then, I tell you what, put on one of the skull caps and go and take a walk down any of the seats you think you're going to win, Mr. Polanski. Well, actually, it's not Zach Polanski, real name Dave, because they do this with Tommy Robinson, right? Tommy Robinson, in brackets, real name Stephen Lemon or whatever it is. So Zach Polanski, real name Dave Featherhead, whatever his name is. Ask him to put on a Jewish skull cap and wander down any single seat he thinks he's going to win in the next in either the local elections, and he wouldn't dare. He wouldn't even dare. He wouldn't dare walk 5 meters. As a Jewish, openly gay man who's pro-trans rights, good luck with that, Dave. Well, I think that he'd probably make it to the corner of the street before a crowd started to gather, and then he'd probably think, I'll probably take off my rainbow lanyard and I might as well get rid of this little cap because I'm not
I'm clearly not welcome here. And,
Dave, yeah, I totally agree. Thank you for your wise words. Appreciated your time. Let's speak again soon. Dave in London there. Dan in Portsmouth say the genie is out of the bottle. This is Islamism. Or Dan goes further. It's Islam. Is that the problem? You're listening to Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, what about this for a story to stop you in your tracks? Nearly 2/3 of British teenagers will suffer from a mental health condition or behavioural disorder by 2030. A report by Zurich Insurance found that having a mental health problem had already become the norm for young people aged between 15 and 19. Its estimates suggest that 51% of people in this age bracket have a mental or behavioural disorder such as anxiety, depression or ADHD. By 2030, Zurich Insurance forecasts this will hit 64% if current trends persist. Now, this threatens to worsen Britain's youth unemployment crisis as ministers warn that many are destined to a lifetime on benefits without greater intervention. So what about the health industry? What about these definitions of autism and ADHD? Are we medicalising the normal problems of life? Who better to ask than the author of Antidepressed, which is a fascinating expose of the mental health industry, Beverly Thompson. Hello, Beverly.
Hi, Mark. Nice to see you.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. What do you make of this statistic that 2/3 of young people will have a mental health condition by the end of the decade?
Well, I think you know my opinions when it comes to mental health in our country. And I just want to, there's been the recent review, obviously, of the PIP payments, which really shows us what is happening in this country in terms of the amount of people and the amount of money that we're paying out in terms of benefits. I'll just quote a couple of few statistics that might shock your viewers. So benefit claims for common mental health problems like anxiety and ADHD are set to cost the taxpayer between 3.5 billion and 4.3 billion annually if rates continue as they do. Monthly PIP awards for mental health conditions at the moment have tripled. So there were 2,500 in 2019, and in 2023 it went up to 8,200 a month. Now, the only people who are statistically and in the future going to be damaged by this are our young generation. We are living at the moment in what I call a world where we have a mental health scam.
Well, the issue we've got is that mental health has become an industry, hasn't it, Beverly? And I think we can separate serious conditions such as bipolar disorder and then having a bad day or feeling a bit low or anxiety. These are two very different things, but they're both being medicalised.
Well, they're being medicalised, but the real issue here is the mental health industry is a scam, because what we're doing is we're diagnosing conditions that have no biological markers at all. So there have never been any biological markers found for most mental disorders, including the one that you just quoted, and including ADHD. So there are no objective tests that exist to verify any psychiatric diagnosis.
So you would argue that ADHD doesn't really mean anything. There is no proof it exists.
No, the ADHD is a lucrative market. So there are approximately 3 million people in the UK that allegedly have ADHD. So the market is worth somewhere around 172 million to 518 million, depending on whether you include drugs or tests.
Because of course there's money to be made from giving a kid with an ADHD diagnosis money or therapy. So that's why it's an industry, and you've always got to look at the profit motive.
Yeah, it's an industry, you know, it's a huge market. And it absolutely, people like Angela Rayner, for example, and other high-profile celebrities are amongst the millions of so-called ADHDers who, you know, they've been adopted, they've been brainwashed, they've been groomed by the industry, and they're used as influencers. And this is the danger. This is one of the dangers that's affecting our young people. You know, they've swallowed the mythical, unproven marketing babble of organisations selling the ADHD label. And this has to stop.
What do you think ADHD is?
Well, ADHD is a classification of symptoms. It's a number of symptoms that people find themselves suffering because of what's happening in their lives and their inability to cope with life.
So, for example, they're habitually late, they're chaotic, they struggle with motivation. Your argument would be that doesn't require a medical diagnosis and it doesn't require pills.
Exactly that, yeah. I mean, we need to educate people who are supposedly suffering from these mental disorders. And we need them to understand that they've been adopted and they're being used to sell, to create profits for industry.
Are we also infantilizing young people and telling them that they're victims by focusing so much on mental health at school?
I think we are definitely doing that. And, you know, the problem is if we continue to tell children the problem lies with them, then we're never going to address the social issues we need to address to make systemic changes.
And you shouldn't tell children that they're helpless or that they're a victim, should you?
Never. Never. Of course we shouldn't tell children they're a victim. But unfortunately, that's what we are telling children. And this, again, you know, we have a social contagion at the moment. You know, and what's happening is that the language that children hear, they're adopting and they're believing.
The other issue we've got is some of this medication for the treatment of anxiety, ADHD, and other mental health issues come with side effects, don't they, that are little discussed?
Yeah, they come with huge adverse effects, and particularly for younger people. The brain is still developing when you give a child these drugs. There have been very few long-term studies with children to find out exactly what the long-term adverse effects might be. And we also have to consider there's a huge suicide risk for for children who take, in particular, antidepressants.
Yes, and is it SSRIs are a particularly controversial form of treatment for mental health issues, which come with quite spectacular side effects, including a loss of libido, permanent erectile dysfunction, and many other impacts.
That's absolutely true. And this
now,
is
that's not a conspiracy theory, is it?
Oh, yeah, huge conspiracy theory. Well, if you look online, Mark, you will see the thousands and thousands of young people whose sex lives have been destroyed by these drugs. And it's a huge issue now. And we need to see the press talking about this more.
We do. Why do you think this industry has proliferated in such a manner, Beverly?
Well, the pharmaceutical industry are very powerful, aren't they? That's one reason. And I think the other reason, you know, it suits the government to use mental health as a PR tool. Look what we're doing for you. We're supporting your mental health. We're paying benefits towards your mental health, when really they're addressing absolutely nothing in terms of the social determinants that are making us ill.
Beverly, just for balance, what would you say to those who maybe have kids that have taken ADHD medication and noticed a marked improvement in their behaviour, in their work at school, in their general happiness? Or what about those older adults who are on mental health medication, for example, SSRIs, who argue they would frankly no longer be on the planet without them?
Yeah, and I never say that people shouldn't take these drugs. That's an individual's choice. And if it works for some individuals, then that's fine. But do your research, do the reading, and you might realise that they're perhaps not as helpful as you think.
And they're being handed out like Smarties. And there is something called the placebo effect. Can you tell us about that, Beverly?
Well, the placebo effect is obviously with any medication. Just because you are taking a drug and you improve, we all probably will improve in life at some point. You know, things change, life moves very quickly. But it doesn't mean it's the drug that's making you better.
Well, no, because sometimes with medication, they'll do a placebo trial, won't they, where half of the group take the medicine and half take a pill which contains nothing in it. And the people that get the pill with nothing in it suddenly say they feel much better and happier.
Yeah, that's true. But most of the PR that comes from these trials is ghost written, which means that for the people who are damaged by these drugs, very often we don't hear the real story.
Beverly, have you received pushback for your book, Anti-Depressed, and your position on this medication? Because I've certainly tried to have this debate on various media outlets in the past, and I've had colleagues saying, look, you cannot have this conversation because people will get very angry. Mental health is a real hot potato.
Absolutely, I have had pushback. I have had terrible threats personally because of what I speak out about. But the fact of the matter is that it needs to be spoken about, and people need to become more aware that some people will be seriously harmed by these drugs.
What kinds of things have people said to you, Beverly, by way of criticism?
Obviously, most people will say that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm fabricating. And, you know, the anecdotal evidence and the research that I've done, talking to thousands and thousands of people, says exactly the opposite. To be honest, Mark, I would go as far as tell you I've had death threats.
It's completely unacceptable and it's appalling. And the reason why is because you're challenging a consensus, aren't you?
I am. And so are lots of other people now. And that's a great thing. I think people are starting to wake up, which is wonderful.
Beverly, is an element of this political, that it's sort of like the woke progressive worldview that poor little Johnny's not well, he's got anxiety and he needs medication. Does it strike you as a left versus right issue at all?
Yeah, I think it does. And the Labour government have so annoyed me immensely with, you know, this is about social change, and they're doing absolutely nothing with regard to social change. And in their manifesto, you know, they committed to putting a mental health professional or counsellor in every school.
What a waste of money.
But they don't have a waste of money, but as always, their maths didn't quite add up. They're pledging, I think, 175 million in the first year. A councillor's average salary is around 30 to 40,000 a year, which means the amount of schools that we have, Labour have allocated £5,400 per school for that councillor.
Beverly, it's been brilliant to have you on the show. How can people find out more about your work?
They can find me on X, Antidepressed, and also I have my email on X and also on Facebook.
Just a few seconds. Beverly, it would be very helpful if somebody could go into the classroom on a daily basis and say to children and young people, folks, life is difficult. There will be problems. You're going to be sad sometimes. That's not a problem. It's normal. Have a good diet, get 8 hours of sleep, fresh air and exercise, and it'll go a long way to improving your mental health.
Absolutely. You know, and children are getting smarter. You know, they're starting to realise that a lot of this is psychobabble, and it is, you know, and people really do not understand how even the most eminent neuroscientists do not understand how our brains work. But 80 billion neurons, and yet these ADHD people know exactly how our brains work.
Who knew? Beverly, lovely to see you. We'll catch up soon. Beverly Thompson. Thank you, Beverly. Beverly is the author of Antidepressed. If you're struggling mentally, there is always help. It's always good to reach out. Samaritans are on 116123. You can also head to www.talk.tv/helplines and consult your GP. Now, there are lots of people that will strongly disagree with Beverly Thompson, including leading medical professionals who will argue that antidepressant medication treatment for ADHD, anxiety are of critical importance for young people's well-being. It's all about opinions. What's yours? Are you on it? What do you think about these antidepressants? Is it not just a case that life is difficult? Are we medicalising the daily problems of normal life? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
They sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, we have some breaking news for you here on Talk at 2:53 in the afternoon. And the Telegraph newspaper has revealed that the suspect in the Golders Green terror attack is a man by the name of Essa Suleiman, Suleiman, who lived at one stage in Camberwell, southeast London, worked as a Somali translator. The 45-year-old was referred to Prevent in 2020, but the case was closed later that year. Police say this man had a history of serious violence and mental health problems. The name of the terror suspect in relation to the Golders Green terror attack is Essa Suleiman. We'll bring you more on that as we get it. Are we in danger of over-medicalising people for what is essentially life's normal problems? Louise is in Kent. Hello, Louise.
Oh, hello, Mark. Now, I've spoken about this thing a number of times because I've had a hell of a journey, and certainly the book Antidepressed, there's several books, and I suppose the key person who's done a lot of work on this was Robert Whittaker, who you need to get on. Fantastic journalist, medical, who's looked into all of this. He's exposed.
Did you say Robert Whittaker?
Robert Whittaker.
Okay,
yeah,
brilliant. Finn, take a note of that. Thank you.
Fantastic. But so I was diagnosed with manic depression 40 years ago when I was 21. And at that time, it was about medicalising normal human emotion because they decided that we could treat this like a physical illness and you needed medication to sort things out. I think the point is that medication for mental illness does not correct an illness. What it does, it's behavioural and it suppresses emotions, it calms you down, it might give you a lift. There's all those kind of elements, but it doesn't actually change and deal like physical illness. You know, if you've got pain, you take a painkiller. If you've got broken leg, you get it x-rayed.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in mental health, right? So there's all of that. Now, for me, I came off all medication 6 years ago. I went into terrible withdrawal. I went 5 years withdrawal. There's now a lot being said about this. There was a parliamentary group on prescribed drugs harm and all this kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
It's been the toughest journey of my life. I think the one thing I think is really interesting, the one thing I would say to all these people that want to go and get them diagnosed because they think there's something, why would you ever go and get diagnosed? The only reason you go and get diagnosed for something is because you think there's something wrong with you. Now, who's to say what's wrong with you? Because all mental health is subjective. It's what you tell the doctor as to what you're having. And it does concern me the number of people who are now self-reporting, who are making PIP claims through just filling in a form through whatever. They don't have to have any medical backup when to get that. I think that's wrong. I think, for starters with PIP, I think the first thing they could do, go back to face-to-face. You must have medical backup.
Yeah.
But actually, PIP should only be given to those who actually are under secondary care, so they're seeing consultants or whatever, because that would show that your mental illness is actually at a stage where it's really ill. You shouldn't get it if you're in primary care, I think. And if you go back to primary care, because you've done really well, you keep it until your review, and if you're still in primary care, you lose it. So I think there's that whole thing about that now. I mean, I'm doing well now. It's been a fight. I've had the wonderful support of a psychologist in my mental health trust all the way through this, partly because I was working for them at the time as well. But they were fantastic. And the brilliant thing for me, they said to me, because I lost Mum from COVID in the December 20.
I'm sorry.
And all sorts of things. I lost my closest friend as well halfway through, lost my cat, you name it, it went wrong. So I lost everything. But do you know what the psychologist said to me? He said, Louise, we're not seeing any signs of this supposed mental illness, but what we are seeing is you emotionally responding and reacting to what's happened to you. And he said, that is normal. It's hard, but it's normal. I think the other thing about it, I mean, I'm not against the medications. When people are really unwell, they may well need them. But my problem is people being kept on them forever, being told that you need these forever, that's it.
And the over-medicalisation of our society, where the first thing the GP does is reach for the prescription pad.
It's not just the GP, it's people who get on, you know, say, well, I've broken up with my boyfriend, I'm having a mental health crisis, or I need a duvet day because things have got a bit tough, it's my mental health. No, that is life. That is difficult. Frankly, for many, many people, particularly life is crap. That doesn't mean that you have a mental illness. It means that you're finding life difficult, and we have to go through that. Life is not easy, and I think it's incredibly sad we've got to the stage today when it's automatically seen as a mental health day or a mental health problem or whatever.
Well, I agree. It's almost fetishising it, isn't it?
Well, it is. And
people
I think
wear it like a badge now. It's on their social media.
I mean, I lost my career right early on with it, and it destroyed me. Taking my job away, it destroyed me. I fought for 20 years to get back to work, and it did me so much good to get back to work. I can't tell you.
Better than any pill?
Oh, much better. In fact, that's when I started to do well. And that's what eventually led to them giving me a chance to come off everything, because I began to do well. But because I couldn't work full time, and I couldn't do that after so long off, that's why I went for PIP, but I went for a tribunal, and I saw the judge with the DW people there as well. I had support a social worker there, and I focused on all the things which I still have to do now every day to keep well, on all the things I have to do regularly to keep well. I have to sleep well, I have to do lots of different things, activities, I have to eat properly and well as well.
Louise?
If I let any of those go, I become unwell.
Clock's against us, but can I say congratulations on your health journey. You are a hero and you've been very enlightful.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 3. Many thanks for joining me. Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Ian Collins. I'm back on Talk Breakfast in my rightful home of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. So do join me tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for Dolan's Dispatch, my brilliant guests, and much besides. A very busy hour to come following the Golders Green terror attack. Will Jews ever be safe in this country? And are the political class responsible for the rise of anti-Semitism, which many people believe is rooted in Islamic extremism? Meanwhile, Nigel Farage reveals an attempt was made on his life with a firebomb put through his letterbox. Should the leaders of all opposition parties have the same protection as the Prime Minister? And is mass immigration responsible for an increasing climate of religious hatred and violence? Let me know your thoughts. And can the genie go back in the bottle? 03444991000. Text the word talk in your message to 87322. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And reacting to events in the capital in the last 24 hours, I'm delighted to welcome Di Davies, who is the former head of Royal Protection, a retired top cop. Hello, Di.
Hello, Mark. Nice to speak with you again.
Very lovely to have you on the programme, Di. The government have pledged £25 million to secure the safety of Jewish people in Britain. Will that make a difference?
Well, any difference should come from operational policing at various different levels. Strategically, I'd like to see what I was doing back in the 70s when the IRA were bombing the sugar out of London. We had permanent patrols 24/7. I was a young armed officer in those days, and we patrolled and we stopped and we searched. That has to be around the areas where you have synagogues and when you have large conurbation. I don't know how effective the policing, the open policing has been in that kind of area, but that's just one aspect. But equally so, I think the criminal justice system has to step up and actually keep those who are alleged to commit these atrocious acts in custody. As far as I know, the people who set fire to the ambulances are on bail. That's nonsensical. We've got to send out a message across a wide range of fronts. This is unacceptable. And those who perpetuate violence, not only against Jews, against anyone with a political or mental health issue, which I think this man probably has, I don't know, but clearly it's unacceptable, and people should have a right to live in this country without fear or favour because of their religion or ethnic belief, in my opinion. But we've got to have stronger tactics by the police, from what I can see.
And the problem we have, Di, is that there are people in this country, often British-born, who have an ideology which is anti-Semitic and anti-Western.
Oh, we seem to have hundreds of thousands of them. And again, I'd be looking again at the public order. You know, these hate marches, as many describe them, has to be sorted. We can't keep having and keep pussyfooting around by saying, well, they have rights, they have this. They don't have a right to intimidate anybody in this country. And I'm sorry, for successive governments now, we've allowed this to happen, and it is nonsensical, and it wouldn't happen if I was the commissioner.
Well, we can but dream you were. Di, those hate marches are very revelatory, aren't they? Because the people on those marches are saying the true bit out loud. They hate Jews, they hate the West, and they support terror.
And they're aided and abetted by a number of so-called independent left-wing MPs now. That's the sad things, aided and abetted by some in the Green Party. You couldn't make it up. How have we allowed this to happen in this country? And we still have the Iranian ambassador living here, working here. It's like having Germany's Nazi lots, during the war. What kind of government have we got at the moment? Why don't they get a grip and ban these wicked organizations like the Iranian Guard, the Egyptian Brotherhood, and a range of other ones? We simply just don't get a grip anymore, do we?
No. Is it too late now? Can the genie go back in the bottle, Di?
We could if we had a decent governor who put British people of all denominations, decent people first. I mean, if they hate us so much, go back to whatever country you want to come. But don't come here spouting your hate in our country. It's just unbelievable. But look at the way out of nowhere, the leader of the Green Party seems to have emerged, and we're giving him credence. It just beggars me belief. And he's another one who says, well, this might be perception by the Jews that they're being attacked. What planet does he and his followers actually live on, in my opinion?
And him being Jewish is no defence.
Well, no, it's no defence to anything. Your religion shouldn't be here or there. It should be common sense, decency, and obeying British law, period. But unless we have a government which enforces that law, who stops allowing 750,000 men of a certain age into this country, where we haven't got a clue as to their antecedents, their criminal activity, or their political beliefs. And then we wonder why we have all this going on. Is it just me, or is the world going mad?
Well, I think it is definitely not just you. I think you speak for the vast majority of my viewers and listeners. Touching on mass immigration, do you think that to a degree we have imported this hateful, anti-Semitic, anti-Western ideology?
Well, we're certainly aiding and abetting it, but I think we've got enough homegrown individuals who were radicalized a long time ago by a wide variety of different goings-on, and I've seen it throughout my generation. So, yes, I think it's aiding and abetting it, and I think it's doing nothing to add to it, but it's adding to the anger of most decent people in this country that we're not tackling it. And successive governments, not just this one, have not tackled it. And it's an absolute disgrace.
Is the national security situation in the country noticeably worse than it was when you were a top royal cop, Di?
It's different in the sense that when I was a policeman, most of my career from 69 until I retired, which 30 years on later, it was to do with the provisional IRA and the hatred against us by elements within the Irish community who were supportive of the IRA. I mean, you could make it up. Sinn Féin in my time was a political wing of the IRA. Now they're in government and in charge in Northern Ireland. I despair. And then we have a government pursuing our decent soldiers.
Yes.
I really despair what kind of people we have governing us.
It's a real concern. And you do think that law and order can be resumed, but I think what I'm hearing from you is zero tolerance when it comes to any community that is a threat to Jewish people or the wider population.
Any element with that community who purport violence against the Jews or anyone else, equally so anyone who goes against any religion, whatever that creed. I mean, you don't get in Southall, where I worked for a long time, the Sikhs have integrated the majority of Hindus. It's just certain elements within a certain religion, Islam, who think they can spout this violence because that's what their creed tells them to do, and we're allowing it, and we're not tackling it in a wide range of ways. And we were mentioning politicians. We can have 16 officers protecting Mayor Khan, and yet Nigel Farage has to pay for his own. You mentioned, should politicians, yes, those at risk should have taxpayer funding, particularly in the run-up to elections, etc. It is outrageous that we allow, whatever your belief, somebody like Farage or even the Tory leader, whoever, to go unprotected when we have such vile individuals and a history of attacks against politicians. It's just unbelievable.
When it comes to national security and the threat of law and order on our streets and the safety of Jews, is the elephant in the room Islam, Di?
It could be, well, certainly is elements of it, but equally so, there are those who are mentally ill, who are radicalized by a wide variety of individuals. So it's not just extreme Islamic, it can be those who are mentally ill. And attacks historically on the royal family have come from those, not because they're radical, because they are severely mentally ill. And we have to put that in its concept as well.
And they've succumbed to an ideology. They've been groomed by people peddling this ideology. They become the foot soldiers in their war.
That may well be the case. Clearly, I don't know what goes on and who the Fixated Threat Assessment Centre have within it. But I'm certainly, you're probably right. There are a number of people who've been radicalized. But it's always been the way in universities, ever since I can remember. There are elements within the left wing and the teaching profession who radicalize youngsters, and they're now surprised that we have people spouting hate.
Di,
it's not rocket science.
You mentioned Nigel Farage. He's the leader of Reform UK, and he's revealed that he was the victim of a firebombing attack at his home, as he admitted he would never be able to take his personal safety for granted. He told The Telegraph that the lit incendiary device was pushed through his letterbox early last year, saying there are huge demands in this job. What's particularly surprising, Di, is he said that he's tried and failed in the past to get security funded by the Home Office. Should he receive it?
Yes, he should. I think any politician gets it because allegedly he's being threatened by a wide variety. What's the difference? He's a leader of a party that may well do very well in the next elections. Despite what some would say about him, he's entitled to his views. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't spout hate. He doesn't spout anything other than common sense, I have to say, along with the Tory leader most of the time now. So yes, he and she and anyone else who talks sense, who talks decency, should have protection if the risk assessment shows they deserve it. And in his case, he certainly does, because there are so many elements and they're only the ones we get to hear about. So yes, I think he should.
Di, you were responsible for the safety and security of the Prince of Wales, now King Charles, when you were former head of Royal Protection, and various other members of the royal family. What did you make of the King's trip, or what have you made of it so far, to the United States?
Well, from a protection point of view, I think numerous questions have to be asked about the level, certainly at the Hilton Hotel, and how an individual was able to get to one floor from the basement, and he was able to run past 5 or 6 security, Secret Service. There was no physical barrier there, and if that was their outer door, as one described, well, in my book, a door is solid, and you shouldn't be able to run past armed with 2 weapons, knives, and everything else. Now, who actually shot who? I'm not quite certain now. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, an individual was allowed to penetrate what should have been a secure. And I watched a number of elements of it, and there were big elements of concern, which I won't go into it that now, if I was now looking at it from a learning point of view. So certainly a lot of lessons to be learned. The biggest one, don't have to have 2,000 members of the press when you're at war with another country. I found it ridiculous that they allowed 2,000 plus people in just waving a piece of paper, and they were almost on top of Trump then. So huge questions to be asked. As far as the King is concerned, he's done remarkably well in placating Mr. Trump, and arguably he's our finest diplomat. Whether I would send a nearly 80-year-old to do our business is debatable, but he has, and he's done it remarkably well.
Di, a privilege to have you on the show. We'll speak soon. Di Davies is the former head of Royal Protection with trenchant views across a range of issues. Now, following his trip to Golders Green, which was, of course, the location of an appalling terror attack in the last 24 hours, Starmer has tweeted the following. Yesterday's terror attack was not an isolated incident. It was the latest attack on the Jewish community for being Jewish. Today, I spoke with volunteers, first responders, and Shomrim and Hatzola to thank them for their bravery. I know that this is a deeply worrying time for the whole community. My government is taking immediate action. We've increased enhanced funding for police patrols and protective security, and we're fast-tracking legislation to deal with malign state actors. He goes on to say, my message to Jewish people is this: you belong here, and we will do everything we can to keep you safe. So much more to get through. 3:17. Is mass immigration responsible for an increased atmosphere of religious hatred and violence in this country? Your calls next.
sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is mass immigration into the UK the cause of religious tolerance, hatred and violence in this country? George is in Dundee. Hello, George.
Hi, yeah. How are you doing, Mark?
Very well. Are you a Dundonian yourself, born and bred?
I'm Dundonian through and through, aye.
Glad to hear that, because I think there was a local political candidate for Reform UK who said she was born and bred and then apologised for being racist. So you better watch your back, George.
That's Scotland for you.
Crazy. Anyway, what do you make of all of this?
It's regarding the language that seems to be acceptable now. The band in Kneecap were playing in Dundee a couple of nights ago, and that they used to be very respectable DC Thompsons reported on the band playing there, and basically reported the crowd had a great time and they were in a bit of a frenzy shouting "Free Palestine, Free Scotland, Free Ireland," and death to the IDF.
Crazy.
Now, that's a family newspaper. I find that chant as unacceptable as the N-word, drink driving, child abuse.
Yeah.
It is disgusting.
It should be a social taboo, shouldn't it?
Correct. And I would just like to say as well, Dundee Council in the last few years have banned the likes of Jim Davidson, Katie Hopkins, and Roy Chubby Brown.
Who are, all three of them are just entertainers.
But a band like Kneecap can come, the Balaclava mob get their balaclava. I mean, with DC Thompson's report on a Ku Klux Klan march through the centre of Dundee saying what a riveting time everybody had. It is incredible that this has now got in our language, and it seems to be acceptable to have views about Jews, Israel and Palestine, and it gets reported as a normal, the crowd had a great time.
Has this anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic sentiment suffused into Scottish life as well, George?
Oh my God, yes. You can't walk through the centre of Dundee on a Saturday without somebody waving a Palestine flag or rattling a tin in your face.
Wow.
It's there. It's as much in Dundee, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen as it is in a lot of English. Obviously not as much as London, but a lot of English cities as well. It leaves me cold. And if I was Jewish, if I could get out, I would get out.
Wow. And George, I do remember after October the 7th, there were protests, pro-Hamas protests in Glasgow not long after October the 7th.
Yeah. I mean, it's conditioned up here. The SNP, the Greens, they will not condemn the Labour Party. They will not condemn this sort of stuff. And it's inconvenient for them for these atrocities to take place, and none of them will come out and say it as it is.
It's inconvenient because it doesn't fit the diversity is our strength narrative, right?
It doesn't fit their progressive, or what they think is progressive politics, and everybody is equal and everybody has a right to be free. It's indoctored nonsense, especially into the younger generation who have been to university and through our schooling system now. I find the whole thing incredible. And for a family newspaper to report on this, the crowd went wild with the chants of death to the
it's so
IDF.
bad.
It's just incredible.
I mean, how widespread are these views in Scotland now? Is Scotland institutionally woke at this point, George?
I would say the majority aren't, but the SNP have enough, 35% of the public, to be continually in power. They'll win the elections coming up in the next week or so. Probably as a minority again, they'll probably make a pact with the Greens. And Scotland is in this cycle of continually being governed by the SNP and the Greens with their grievance and it's like school challenge politics. It's just nonsense. Yeah.
Well, indeed. Quite interesting that in the last couple of days there's been a big story in Scotland. Too few migrants are coming to Scotland, says the SNP. You heard about that?
Well, I heard about it with my ears, but my eyes tell me a completely different story. A completely different story.
I've heard that immigration is massively affecting life, for example, in people in Glasgow.
Yeah, and in Dundee.
Is that right?
I would say the immigrant population was probably 1 to 2% in Dundee, but even 5-10 years ago. Now it's between 5 and 10%.
And how has it affected life? Because the SNP minister, who's called Mari McCallan, says too few migrants are coming to Scotland and that migration is good and necessary for the economy. Is she right about that?
No, she's absolutely not right. We probably need, we're a slightly older population than the rest of slightly, not much in the rest of the UK. But what we need is controlled migration of people who want to integrate, people that want to work, and people that want to try and get in about the Scottish culture, no completely and utterly separate themselves.
And is that happening? Is that integration happening in Dundee? Are they participating? Have they become Scots?
I would say up until about 5-10 years ago, I would say pretty much the Asian community, the Chinese community, the Polish community did integrate. But now as more and more people seem to be arriving from Asia and sub-Saharan Africa, there's no integration here. That's finished.
George, great call. I really enjoyed your company this afternoon. Please call me again soon. I think that's one of the big aspects of immigration. It's about which immigration, the amount, the volume and the quality. Mary in Hemel Hempstead, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mark.
A legend returns.
Mark, you know, this business with the anti-Semitism and the protection for the Jewish community.
Yeah.
This has been going on for about 20 years. This has been happening. They've had to sort of monitor their schools, build fences around them, have a security guard. It's nothing new, but it's worsening, obviously. I've been to Israel many times. My husband was Jewish. I changed my religion to become Jewish, to be alongside him. And we went to Israel many, many times. People are, you've got gays walking down the street openly. There's no problem. There were different religions flourishing there. The Catholic religion, the Catholic, Muslim, and the, can't think of the other one, Greek, all that sort of thing were openly practicing. There were no problems at all. They were very tolerant about everything. And I can remember going along one street and there was a wall and it was being painted by a Palestinian. And when he'd finished, he'd written on it, today Saturday, tomorrow Sunday. In other words, today there would be the Jews and tomorrow would be the Christians.
Wow.
So this is not going to stop. It's going to carry on and we're pandering to it. And I cannot for the life of me understand why people, educated people in this country, particularly those now joining the Greens, a lot of which are elderly, middle-aged, sensible, what we would call sensible, educated, rational people, are being carried along on this wave. And young students in universities, fully educated, going along the same thing. And I cannot understand why they cannot see where this is going to go.
Is it because they've been educated at universities which are peddling this ideology, Mary?
They've got individual brains, Mark. They should.
Yeah, you would hope.
They don't question anything anymore. They're taking everything at face value. And it's no good saying it's social media because it's not that. There's just something seems to be happening inside the brains of people nowadays that just are not thinking. We've got a Prime Minister, as I say, we've got a Prime Minister at the moment who doesn't question, doesn't think. He's in the same sort of group, just listens to what he's told and believes it. And this is where I cannot understand what is happening.
Is Islam the elephant in the room here, Mary?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And it's in their Quran. They do not believe in democracy. It's just something that is not, so, not in their sort of nature. They've been brought up with this. They're brought up to hate Jews, hate Christians, and their ideology goes really right back to the Crusades. Well, I mean, they were intelligent people. I mean, the Ottoman Empire was one of the most prolific and most beautiful of all time, almost.
Yeah, a great civilization, so much innovation and human progress and enlightenment.
Behind that now, it's as if that never existed, and they've gone back behind that sort of thing.
To the medieval. What about the so-called moderate Muslims, Mary?
I don't believe there are any, because how can they be, if they're a Muslim, they do not believe in democracy, they do not believe in homosexuality, they go along with these things, they're brought up. So how can they be moderate if they're following a religion? Unless they've left the religion, then fair enough, but look at the persecution that those that leave the religion get, those that don't want to marry who they're told to marry get, the honour killings that take place. They are all part of the same problem, because I do not believe there are any moderate Muslims, because they are all part and parcel of the same belief.
But what about the moderate Muslims who do vote in elections and who live in our neighbourhoods, who work with us? We sometimes marry them, friends and colleagues marry, and many of those moderate Muslims who abhor the sort of events we've seen in the last 24 hours.
Those that leave the religion, I can believe. But those that stay Muslim, I do not believe, no matter whether they say they are moderate Muslims, whether they are going to follow the laws and they don't agree with this and don't with that. They are part of the problem, because they are still clinging on to being a Muslim, and which their doctrine is completely alien to what is the Western religion.
Mary, great to chat again. It's been far too long. We will speak soon. Mary in Hemel Hempstead there. The elephant in the room, says Mary, is Islam. So much more to come. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Has King Charles saved the special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom? Let's get the views of Charles Ray, former royal editor of the Sun newspaper. Hello, Charlie.
Hello, Mark.
What's your appraisal of the King's trip to America, Charles?
Oh, well, 10 out of 10, if not more. I mean, he was brilliant. It was the right tone. It was the right way of dealing with Trump. It was the right way of his speeches, bit of humor, and saying all the right things. The big question, of course, Mark, is when the king is back here again, what's the relationship going to be like between Mr. Trump and Mr. Starmer? Now, that is as important a relationship as it is between the king and Trump, although it doesn't necessarily mean it's the office you're talking about, the office, not Trump and Starmer themselves. It's actually the president of the United States and the prime minister of the UK. And the king has certainly repaired any of the damage that clearly was done in the row between Trump and Starmer. There's no question in my mind about that. He did very, very well. You just got to look at the pictures that we keep on seeing on our news of the way they act together. It is friendly, it is cordial. And then you look in the past at the way Trump and Starmer, appear with each other, and it's quite cold. There is no warmth there between those two men. Now, these are two guys, the king and Trump, who respect each other. And Trump has tried during this trip to sort of drag the king into a little bit of the Iran war. But, the king wasn't having any of that scenario. He just he played it by the book brilliantly all the way through. Again, we got to wait and see what happens next week. Is Trump going to start slagging off Starmer and the UK again? And if he is, are we going to keep on sending the king once a week to the States to sort of shake hands and have a meal? But you can't fault the king. I mean, if anything, he learned at his master's knee, his mother's knee, about diplomacy, and he used it all during this few days.
He seems to be having a late career flourish, doesn't he, Charles? Have you ever seen him on such good form? And have you ever heard such a good speech from Charles, the one that he gave to both houses of Congress?
I've heard speeches that he gave which are full of humour, and he's a great... I was going to say he's a great comic, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean
a natural comedian.
Natural comedian, and he will have had input into that speech that was written for him, and he will have certain things like, I mean, it was great. Trump comes up and says, "If it hadn't been for us, you'd be speaking German." And Charles comes back and says, "If it hadn't been for us, you'd be speaking French." I mean, that's not bad. I mean, I know the two guys would have known that was what was going to be said, but it's still good knockabout stuff. And yes, I have seen him perform like that before, at various things. And he does come up with some really great one-liners. And if he hadn't been king, maybe he could have been on the comedy circuit, Mark.
I think most definitely. He knows how to deliver a line, and I salute his speechwriter. I mean, Charles, it's interesting, isn't it, to watch his performance as head of state heading over to the United States. Confident, he looks comfortable in his own skin, and this is what he wants. This is the legacy he's striving for on the international stage. He doesn't want his reign to be dominated by his runaway son Harry and his errant younger brother Andrew.
No, he doesn't. And, those are two controversies that he has got to deal with. And I have to say, I think he's dealt with both of them brilliantly. There is not much more he can do is in terms of dealing with Andrew in particular. And, he can't prosecute his own brother. He hasn't got the power to do that. He can't force the police to investigate. He hasn't got the power to do that either. All he can do is what he's done, and that is, I will cooperate with anything that you want to do, which is what he's doing with these allegations of misconduct in public office aimed at Andrew.
Yeah.
So there's nothing else he can do. I mean, he's done the best he can.
What do you think Harry will have made of his father's trip to America?
I'd like to think that Harry would, at long last, show some respect to his father. The very fact that he hasn't said anything is probably the right thing for him to do. He shouldn't be making any comment or doing anything that would upset the apple cart on this. I mean, he's tried. I mean, some say he could have tried to do upset the apple cart by going to the Ukraine just a few days beforehand and so forth. But I mean that's Harry, and I don't have any problems with Harry going to the Ukraine whatsoever. I'd like to think that he would be a little bit more proud of the king than he's shown, more respectful of the king than he has shown in recent years.
Most definitely, although unhelpful that on that trip to Ukraine, Harry urged America to step up in relation to the war. That was bound to be unhelpful to the king.
Yeah, especially as this was a mainly diplomatic mission that he was on. I mean, this was a very... you can't underline just how difficult this mission was. He had to repair quite a bit of damage that had been done. Doesn't matter whose fault it was, whether it was Trump or whether it was Starmer or whatever. There was damage between the so-called special relationship. And I think the king has done very well to repair that. Now, we'll have to wait and see. Is it just going to be an elastoplast covering a wound, or is it going to be something more substantial in the near future? I hope it's something more substantial.
Are you surprised that Harry and Charles did not meet, given the fact that Charles has landed on American soil?
No, well, Mark, as you well know, I mean, the king landing on the East Coast and Harry's on the West Coast. I mean, that's another several thousand miles.
But if it was your old man, you'd jump on a plane to Washington, wouldn't you, Charlie?
I don't know. I don't know if there's no time. There is no time. Could the king have made time if he really wanted to? Perhaps he could have done. But this was not that sort of visit. This was a purely visit on behalf of the UK government. Nothing to do with Charles and Harry as his son. And what was to stop Harry jumping on a plane and getting to New York and bringing Meghan and the kids and saying...
Well, this is it. I mean, I don't know why there wasn't a 30-minute Clarence House style face-to-face with Harry doing the air miles. And I just wonder, Charles, whether it's telling that audience was not granted, because I suspect if the king was willing, Harry would have been on that plane.
Oh, I think you're right. If the king was willing to do that, and then it would have happened. However, it just goes to show just how much there is still a lot of mistrust between the king and his youngest son. You know, they're not going to put themselves up. And also, seemingly, you know, if Harry did turn up, you're then treading toes on a very important occasion, you know, celebrating the 250 years of American independence. And I thought it was quite nice of the Daily Mail to go back through the ancestry trees to discover that actually Trump and Charles are cousins very much removed, and Trump's related to George III, who the Americans kicked out, in the revolution. So, I thought all that stuff was really great stuff.
How do you think the relationship between Charles and Harry will play out when they next meet? Do you think that Harry's on a path to some kind of royal reunion?
No, I don't.
Wow.
There can't be a royal reunion, in my view, the way things are. There's too much, gone under the bridge now for it.
Is Harry out? Is Harry out?
Harry is out. The royal family don't need Harry, and they don't need Meghan. The great pity is that the king, as a grandfather, has not been able to see his two American grandchildren. That's the shame. That's the great pity of all. But I don't see any role for Harry in the future in the royal family. Remember, he wanted to go. It was never going to be half in, half out. He's trying to make it look as if it's half in, half out. He's still got a royal role, he says, and so forth. He may well have, but not as part of the Windsor royal family. And I still believe that Meghan will never come back to this country.
Oh my goodness. What do you think is the best case scenario for Harry in relation to the royal family then? He will never be a frontline serving royal, notwithstanding his comments to ITV News in Ukraine. What can Harry hope for? Is it an annual face-to-face meeting? Can he stay in Sandringham? You know, what can he hope for in the years ahead?
What he can hope for, I mean, I would like to, you know, I'd like to think that Harry and Charles at some stage could sit in a room together and have a cup of tea and have a good old chin wag about things. And you know, healing is time is the great healer and all that sort of stuff. But whether it can happen with Harry and Charles, and let's not forget, you've got the other problem. You've got William. Don't forget William. William is a key player in all this. And William is really hurt and wounded by the way that Harry has acted. And, you know, William is going to end up being king one day. And I can't see any role, any place for Harry in a new King William court. None whatsoever.
Could William go farther? Could William go further than his father Charles in relation to Harry when he takes to the throne? Could he strip Harry of the titles? Could he take Prince and Princess off of Lilibet and Archie?
Well, he could. I'm not sure that if he would do that. That would smack of some sort of revenge. But we've already seen that Andrew's lost all his titles and all his royal trappings and everything else. Now, if that's happened to the king's brother, then it could easily happen to, you know, his own brother.
Wow.
In the future, it depends how things go. There's so much animosity between both sides of the royal family, and the royal family as it is now, they've always wanted to be a smaller unit, and they've got that smaller unit. They don't need Harry. They don't need Meghan. They don't actually need Archie and Lilibet. Let them all get on with their own lives, and let's just, you know, Harry and Meghan just stop sniping and, you know, having a go at the royal family. They're doing their best.
Most definitely. I think the family don't want a rival royal court, and that's what's playing out, isn't it?
It's not going to. That's not going to happen. I mean, these little tours that Harry does. I mean, when he went to Australia, it wasn't like 2018. It was okay. I mean, they weren't that. The crowds weren't that big. It was all stage managed and choreographed and everything else. There wasn't any spontaneity like you have a proper royal tour. You just look at America. Look at the people that have turned out to see the king and the queen, and you know what's happened there. And when William and Catherine go on a royal tour, look what happens there. You know, Harry does and I'm not knocking Harry for going to the Ukraine. He's done the right thing. Because it's important that he has a say. He's got nothing else to do, so he may as well get involved in, if you like, in the politics side, because his father can't get involved in, you know, legitimately can't get involved in it.
What do you think Charles thinks of Harry these days?
He's his son. He'll always love him. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter what he does. You'll always love you.
Has he given up on him?
I don't think he's given up on him. I think he's. I think he feels frustrated that it's gone this far. But it's like a runaway train. There's nothing much he can do to stop Harry. Let's not forget. I don't want to bring up all the old wounds and everything else, but you know, Harry was the one who went on Oprah Winfrey, wrote a book, and you know, criticized the family and everything else. You can't expect, you know, people to sort of sit at Windsor. And think, oh, well, that's Harry's view. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I was around when Harry was a young lad, you know, on the ski slope, and you know, being looked after by Charles. I mean, Charles was not a bad dad at all. I mean, he was a very, very good father, equally as good as Diana was a mother. You know, there's no question about the love that Charles has, and I still believe he has that love for Harry.
Wonderful to have you on the programme. We have a lot of love for you, Charles, one of the most experienced and respected royal journalists in the world, Charles Ray, former royal editor of The Sun. This is Talk.
they sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall! Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. It's Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Ian Collins. I'm back on breakfast Friday, Saturday and Sunday. That's my regular slot. Starting tomorrow morning. Cannot wait. I have really missed waking up with you on a Friday morning. So do join me for Dolan's Dispatch and much more besides. Chris has messaged the show. Hello, Mark. Keir Starmer is on TV telling us all the facts about the attacks on Jews. We know all of this, you dummy. Give us solutions. What an embarrassment this fool is. I'll get to more of your feedback in just a moment. Jenny is in Hampshire regarding the Prime Minister. Hi, Jenny.
Hello.
Lovely to have you on the show. What is your appraisal of our Prime Minister? Do you think he's on borrowed time?
I think it's just one big mistake, and the whole government is. I mean, unless this government's kicked out, we're not going to see any change in this country. He has no respect for the indigenous people of this country at all. He relies on the Muslim vote for everything. And to my personal view, that's why he did not go into Iran, because he did not want to offend a Muslim country.
And it's the same reason why he turned a blind eye to those weekly so-called peace marches.
Yes. He has no backbone, and quite honestly, I really cannot stand watching him on TV. I do watch him and I do listen, but I look at him and I think every time he opens that thing and it's called his mouth, it just falls out lie after lie after lie. And I just think, do you really think we are all that stupid that we can look at you and we know every time you open your face, it's lie after lie? I have no respect for this man, and quite honestly, there's not anybody on the front bench that I would really give breathing space to.
Well, I agree. I mean, if we had a change of Prime Minister, that is deck chairs on the Titanic, isn't it, Jenny?
Well, quite honestly, I mean, I've got to be honest. I mean, can you imagine Angela Rayner? I mean, I'm sorry, no.
What, on the world stage?
How embarrassing would that be? It'd be more embarrassing than him. She can't. I mean, I'm sorry, but she's not exactly that sort of material.
Well, what is your concern with Angela Rayner? Because some would say that she's had an amazing career. She's come from nothing. She's got a great backstory. She's a popular figure.
Because she lied about a lot of stuff. I mean, let's face it, she's got caught out on a few things, and that's only things we know about. So, no, I have no time for that baloney as regards she come from this background and that background. So what? So have a load of other people.
I know.
But, I mean, I'm sorry. I think she's a bit rough.
Well, I mean, that's interesting you say that, Jenny. Now, in the Prime Minister's defence, he would argue that he's done a lot to rid his own party of anti-Semitism. Is that a fair argument?
No. He has done nothing. Absolutely nothing. Why has things got worse if in his own little brain, he thinks he's done better or, done better for the Jewish community? He has not. Things have got worse for that community. So he's just hopping around. He's convincing himself. He's like a compulsive liar.
And Jenny, you're right to be concerned about Angela Rayner. She's got questions to answer in relation to her stamp duty, which is ironic from a former housing secretary. There was a great mystery about what her main address was in the 2010s. She's had expenses and all the rest of it. She also called her political opponents scum, which I don't think is becoming of a future Prime Minister. But here's a question for you. You've got Angela Rayner, who I think you don't rate very much. Then you've got Ed Miliband, who will double down on net zero. Is there a risk? Is there a risk that the alternative will be worse? I mean, is Starmer the devil we know, Jenny?
Yes, keep him in. If you look at Ed Miliband, I'm sorry, I think he's brain dead as well. Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, you're going to just go from bad to worse.
Oh, don't give me Andy Burnham. I mean, where is all this mystery, this great revelation about him? He's the emperor that's got no new clothes, right?
Well, excuse me, he can stay up where he is then. Thank you very much. Stay up there and do your job up there. We don't want him down the stairs.
But what is it? I don't understand this mythology about Andy Burnham. I mean, this is a guy that will turn on a dime. Apparently, he was New Labour in the 2000s. Suddenly, he's a socialist. Make it make sense.
As long as the money's there, as long as the money's right, we'll have some of that then,
He doesn't.
all right?
I don't think he believes anything, old Andy Burnham, except Andy Burnham.
Exactly. I don't rate any of them.
What's that expression, Jenny? He'd eat himself if he was made of ice cream or something like that.
If he was chocolate, he'd eat himself.
Oh, that's the one. That's the line.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anyone that gives you hope who could save this government?
No. No, not one. Not one person. I just look along the front bench and I go along and I do try and I go, yeah, idiot, brain dead, idiot. Oh, we've got a brain dead one there. There's one.
Well, there's a few good ones, right? But they've all been chucked out of the party. Who did I have on earlier? I'm just looking it up, Finn. What a character he was. Who? Yes, Carl Turner. Thank you, Sam, who's just halfway through an apple. Carl Turner talked a lot of sense. He's an ex-Labour MP. He's been suspended because he wants to keep jury trials.
Yeah, well, this is it. You see, if you're a sensible Labour person, you get the whip removed, or you're kicked out, or you're this, or you're that. You know, I mean, it's just this is how underhanded this government is.
Well, yeah, I mean, what Carl Turner said to me on the show earlier. I don't know if you were listening, Jenny, but he said that we need to cut immigration, we need to reduce the welfare budget, and a couple of other common sense opinions. I mean, that's enough to get you cancelled in the Labour Party, isn't it?
Well, that's taboo, isn't it? I mean, you're going to be burnt next,
What was the other thing he told me?
I've got no time for this.
Oh, yeah, he also said, Carl Turner said something very dangerous. He said we should have economic growth.
Oh, crikey. That's it. He's going to be shot now. That's it. That's him gone.
That's him gone, exactly. Political execution. Jenny, what kind of state is the country going to be in 3 years' time? Because I think we have to accept that they're here to stay because turkeys don't vote for Christmas, right?
Well, we're in a mess now. Let's just say we're going to be in a deeper mess.
I mean, by the way, what about after the election? Have you got your hopes pinned on anyone? Can anyone save Britain at the next election? Is there any figure out there that gives you hope, Jenny?
I think I think a lot of people are going to go for it. And I think it's got to be reform because the Conservative people lost their faith in them because they just mucked about for year in, year out. And I mean, I voted Conservative all my life, and I wouldn't, they've lost the plot. I mean, I think Kimmy Badenoch has done a lot better. Yeah. And she is doing a lot better, but still haven't got that confidence. I think there's not enough there. I think reform, I do think from what they're saying, okay, you've got to weigh everything up. From what they're saying, they've got more concern for the country than the other two parties.
This is the reputation Nigel has, that he's on your side, that he lives in the real world, that he's listening to the public's concerns, and he has been for years.
Yes.
It's interesting. We can but hope. Jenny, I loved our conversation today. What's that? You've got a little dog barking in the background. What breed?
A Yorkshire Terrier.
Oh, the best kind. What's is it a boy or a girl?